to our only viewer at the moment. Oh no, we have two, Greg and Red Siren. Excellent. We have two people listening, and we have three people in the panel tonight. Joining us, I'm sitting in for John LeBon. He's having a well-earned rest. And joining me and co-hosting is Lindsay the Silver Fox. And we are joined also by Lord Rollo and Greenpill, aka Jim. And we might say hello to you first, Rollo. How you doing?
Oh, very well. I thought we already went live, but yes, I think our mate Lindsay's going to go. Yeah, Mr. Piper, 55 years is too young to die.
Yeah.
And he
Absolutely.
he reminds me so much. I know when I listened to those back in the day were with Jeff Rentz. You guys must know who Jeff Rentz is, and
I know the name.
yeah, and those sort of types, and yeah, and he died poor, and so there's no money in alternative media, guys.
No, that's for sure. Don't we know it? No.
Anyway, so you went and found something, did you, Lindsay?
I'm trying to now. I had an email here, but I just can't find a connection to it. So I might just go and do a search, and just do a Google search.
Okay.
That might be the easiest.
Well, thanks for having me, Enchanted Warrior, my sweetheart darling.
You're very welcome. It's wonderful to have you. And I'm going to go over and say good evening and thank you for joining us to Greenpill, and let him say hello and to the panel and to the couple of people who've tuned in to listen.
Yeah, g'day guys. G'day Lindsay, Lord Rollo.
Yeah, g'day.
Yep, g'day.
Greg in the chat, Red Siren in the chat. I just joined in myself, so yeah, interested to have a bit of a chat, a bit of a brainstorm, talk shit.
How's
basically.
your week been?
Yeah, cruising through. Like I was saying before, I sort of have some weeks where I'm really into the stuff and sort of, hungry for knowledge. Other weeks where I just try and escape from it all, just have a week off and not really worry about it. Like I think we can sort of overload if we're always got on the go and just bombarding ourselves, and sometimes you need that escapism. And yes, that was sort of one of those weeks until the cyber when I joined into the ARP. So
yeah, I think it might be going around. John and Ethan seem a little bit flat, and look, I admit I have weeks like that too, where it's just reality and truther overload. There's just so much. And you said something to me earlier, Greenpill, that you didn't think that the human brain was designed to cope with so much truth all at once, and you need a break from it. And my answer was, yep, that's why I record the Real Housewives. That's my escape. I have to sit and watch that rubbish just to decompress sometimes. But you're absolutely right, and I think that might be a little bit of what you're feeling, isn't it? And the same as John and Ethan, maybe a little bit of truth overload.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the fight or flight sort of thing. We're used to facing a sort of just one or two or three threats, front on, not all these insidious threats all the time. Always looking into everything and sort of everyone's out to get you sort of thing. I think it's more just, the obvious stuff that we're being bombarded with advertisements and things that aren't good for us, and by the news and agendas, and you can sort of see it in everything. But at the same time, you can get to a certain point where you're not complacent, but just sort of you feel enough for this week, and you just take it as it comes sort of thing, and not really every single day delving deeper. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at the moment.
Absolutely. Do you agree with that, Lindsay? Do you think we all get a little bit of truth overload from time to time?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, and for your own sanity, you've got to back off occasionally, because you can become too intense. I don't. Maybe the family think I do, but I've seen other people who just completely burn out and go over the top, and they want to spend all their money letterboxing and doing everything they can, and they finish up broke in spirit and in money. And so I think you have to have a little bit of balance. Otherwise, it'll wear you down. So
Absolutely.
no, I think you've got to have that bit of a break away from it occasionally.
Absolutely. What about you, Rollo? Have you ever had truther
Oh,
overload and had to
I
just
love
take
it.
a break?
This green guy who's just joined us now, it reminds me so much of Raw. Yeah, that Rorschach guy. I mean, in his own, just in a different sort of way, the way you speak. Rorschach, what did he say tonight? That during the chat while the show was going on. I don't know what it was. No, it was you, Enchanted Warrior. You said that he shouldn't, if he'd spoke to his mum, like, what did you say again
Oh,
to
I
me?
said that to you in Skype. We didn't. That was
Sorry,
private,
is that
Rollo.
okay to talk about? Is that okay to talk about? Yeah.
Well, Rorschach has very nicely and kindly joined us. He's in the chat, in the live chat, listening.
Yeah.
Um,
That's okay.
we actually have 7 or something now. 6, 5. We
My
have
goodness.
5 watching now. But yeah, I did make a little bit of a comment, and it's in general, well, not just to Rorschach himself, but
Yeah.
in general, there is a lot of disrespect that goes on in the chat. People get really heated and tend to, even I myself guilty of losing. You lose your temper sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
Blowing your rag. Yeah, when
yeah,
you lose your rag. But the thing is, we're on the internet. The internet is so. This is why people think that they can get away with anything, because it's not them. It's not like you're talking to another person face to face.
exactly.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
that.
and that's something that I've taught my son
Yeah.
is don't say anything in your chats and all that you wouldn't say, and say it the same way in person. And especially when he was younger, because he's 19 now, but when he was first, like when he was 14, 15, and he was online, I said to him many times, I said, if you get into adult conversations, don't play the I'm a kid card. Because if you're going to jump in on adult conversations, and if you're going to carry on, you expect to be held as an adult. If you want to jump on in, and that was what we were, I think we were alluding to. But there's a lack of respect that I'm noticing, that's coming from sort of everyone lately. And again, maybe that comes down to the truth overload. I'm not sure. What do you reckon, Lindsay? Do you think the respect is sorely lacking lately, and is it a truther overload side effect, or is it just because we're sitting behind our computers and not being face to face with people?
Yeah, I don't really know what goes on. I think it's just sometimes people just don't, like you're saying about the face to face. People just don't have the good manners that you'd say to people. I mean, I know people who speak like that to everybody. And I think if you're watching television and all the soapies, that's the way they behave. And so a lot of people in the community think that is the way to behave. And it's only when you get a bit older you realise, no, we've got to be a bit kind to each other, because it's all very well and good being tough-skinned, but eventually these things still get through. So you try and be nice to people, just because that's the way to behave. Well, that's my view on it anyway. So I'll leave it back to you now.
Yeah, I think even if you disagree with someone, there's no need for sarcasm. There's no need for the jabs and the smart aleck replies. I mean, there's enough, disharmony within. I don't know that I want to call this a movement, because I don't think that it is, but this group of people who are wanting, to say that they're awake and that they're truthers, there is a massive amount of disharmony and disrespect. And I think, well, if we want to overcome the tyranny, if we want to overcome all the lies, I think perhaps the first thing that we should all hold ourselves to is a high standard of communication and respect. And I think taking digs at people's content is just childish. I think taking digs at people, you know, like we all have varying different opinions on things, you know, and I think in fun it's okay, but when you're being sarcastic and nasty and having a dig just for the dig's sake, I think it's unnecessary, and I think it detracts from the conversation. What do you think about that, Green Pill? Do you think it distracts us and detracts from the conversation?
Definitely, I think it's one of the biggest. I think there's upfront subversion as well, sort of, you know, galvanizing sections of the truth movement against other people, like when people argue about 9/11, what they think they know happened compared to just what we can all agree on, like planes versus no planes, or controlled demolition versus energy weapons, or whatever. But yeah, definitely, it makes us fight amongst ourselves and on the little details rather than agreeing and on what we can all agree on, you know. And it does sort of just make us. It sort of turns us back into everyone else, as in just those petty little my view is right versus your view is right. You know, watching the media and they sort of divide you on issues. 50% have to be this way, 50% have to be that way. And I think John's pretty good at that when he talks about the fact that there is massive grey areas. You don't have to be 100%, claim to know everything on a particular subject. It's just good to question a bit of everything. And definitely attacking people that are, especially if they're just putting their opinion across, they're not doing it in a really negative way or a really know-it-all way. It's very counterproductive. I think, like I missed what you guys were talking about with the chat and that earlier, but usually I try and sort of mediate when people, and I guess almost speak for other people when they're having a go and not really hearing people out, like dismissing an idea because of they think it's a communist plot or whatever, or when, like yourself, when you might be coming from a positive side of things, but people still sort of jump on it. But yeah, throw it back to someone else. And
yeah, well, and I agree. And what was happening in the chat all afternoon was, especially when I think the worst of it happened when we were talking about the Zionists. There was a big discussion on the Zionist control, and there was quite a few. Rorschach wasn't the only one, but there was quite a few people having digs about bringing up, the Jews and the Zion control and all of that. Now the ARP, when they do the Roundtable podcast, I don't find that they ever come across saying they're giving news. Like Lindsay and Ethan and Jono always come across very professional, and it isn't done. They're not there having a go at anyone, and that's where I find the digs to be very disingenuous and distracting, because if they were just on their own sort of podcast having a rant and going rah, 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 stupid Jews, blah blah blah, you could understand people going, hey, hang on, blah blah blah. But when it's being presented in a news format, I think that's just causing distraction, and I'm noticing it a lot in a lot of the shows, and you just have to wonder why. Why would you need to do that? Lindsay, what do you think?
To be honest with you, I didn't look at that. I didn't see that part of the chat this afternoon, but and maybe I'm off the mark, but I just remember that there were a lot of university students in Israel who were being paid to go onto all these sorts of chats and to try and disrupt them. Not just the chats, but almost anything on the internet, to try and go in and counter any propaganda against either Jews or Israel. So whether some of those people are from that source or not, I don't know, or whether it's just individuals who may take offence, because I know there are people, even if you use the word Jew, some people, you can see them visibly shirk, like, oh, hell, what's going to be said now? So there is a lot of that around in certain groups in the population. So whether the people that were reacting this afternoon are a bit that way inclined, or whether they are actually paid to do that as part of their job, I don't really know. Anyway, I'll throw it back to some of these fellas and just see what they say about that. Because
I was just going to say, I was just going to say that that Rorschach just made a comment. Let's defend John. ... The show. They're the kind of comments that we're talking about. There's no need for it. It's just sarcastic division. We're not defending John. We're just defending good manners and respect. You know, that's an international standard. Greg says it's just a distraction. If we're fighting amongst ourselves, that's it. They've won. We shouldn't let them win and concentrate on the issues so that we can win. What do you think about that, Rollo?
Well, good manners and respect is like, there are so many times I wanted to interject there in 1,000 things that you guys say. Look, the Jews are a nasty bunch of people. I think, yes, Hitler was probably right, and they need the final solution. He just didn't have it his way. I'm joking. Of course.
I tend to agree, but I would clarify that in saying that it is the Zionist Jews.
Yeah,
there are quite a lot of
let me say something serious now.
Jewish people who...
Look, when it comes to you were talking about were you PK22 and Jeff C, the other? I don't know if he's a Jew or what's going on there, but I do know that he knocked around with you guys for a while, and that was fun to hear. That guy, he's a guy that I have the highest respect for. Do you guys remember PK22? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember on him once on the show with us, but you know, he might have been here other times that I wasn't here.
Yeah, yeah, but you, Lindsay, you're just yeah. I mean, you have a problem with Zionists and Zionism, but it's not your little local Jew that he's not doing anything to anyone, but you're these Frank Loeys, these scumbag, what do you call them? The Rothschilds, yeah, the House of Rothschilds. You know, these scumbags where they okay, this son is going to run this country. This son is going to run this country, and it's no bloody secret. They've made bloody movies about it.
Yeah.
It's no secret about it.
Yeah.
These scumbags.
And it's almost like they're defending the system when they then when you speak out about it and you say, look at what they're doing. Lindsay often brings up the protocols of Zion. Look at how they've manipulated this over. They've got a blueprint, for heaven's sakes, of how they're going to manipulate us. So when we find articles or we talk about incidences where we can bring it up and expose it, then people attack you for bringing that up. It's like, hang on a second, are you defending your cage? Because these are the people who have designed the cage that you are being kept in. It's like that.
I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm not an anti-Semite. I just hate those fucking Zionist bastards. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I'm anti-asshole.
That's it.
Yeah, it gets a bit I guess obvious when someone's quite not necessarily, either very passionate about it, like social justice warrior sort of thinking, like, because I can confidently say that I've never been that sort of way, as in stigmatizing entire groups or talking about entire groups or that sort of thing, but there is a very obvious overrepresentation, and it's in certain racial groups or ethnic groups or in business and that sort of thing. It does happen, and obviously talking about it's too controversial for even some people in the truth movement, if you want to call it that. Parasitic class, you get that sort of term, and they openly admit that they do that, as in Zionist Jews and their sort of their way of thinking about things. Why do the work yourselves when you can get everyone else to do it, and why fight the war when you can get someone else to fight it for you, and why work when you can usurp money? That sort of thinking that does exist. I don't think it's racist to talk about it. I think the accusations of anti-Semitism is, it's like that prominent Jewish woman said, it's the oldest trick in the book that they use just to dismiss open debate about things, and especially of Israel. You can't criticize Israel without being called anti-Semitic. So
that's right.
Amen.
And let's
Amen,
let's
brother.
clear something up. We're not criticising their faith. We're not criticising their personal choice in what kind of belief and faith they want to have, because that is what Judaism is. It is a faith. It is not a race. That bugs me beyond all belief, that people call the racist card when you criticise a religion. It's a religion. It isn't a race. Now, the Zionist side is their religious practices are a little different, I believe, to the Judaism, and even within Judaism there are a few different strains of how they practice. So it's not the whole Jewish race, Jewish religion. It's not the whole Jewish people that we are criticising. We're criticising a very small group who are even being criticised by other Jewish people. There's been huge protests in America and England against the Zionist movement. So what do you call the Jews that criticise the Zions? They're not anti-Semitic because they are Jews.
They're bad Jews.
Yeah, they're self-hating
Jews that don't support Israel are just bad Jews. Self-hating. Yeah. That's the word.
Self-hating. That's the word they use. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I'd have a couple of things I'd like to say about what you just said, because there are quite a number of Jews who consider themselves to be of no religion whatsoever, and yet they still adhere to the group. So if there's a group thing of some sort there, now they might think that they're of one race or a small number of race. They've got definitely got a group feeling which is beyond religion, because they don't believe in it. A lot of them are just atheists. So there's more going on here than meets the eye, and I think that's been the old age thing. A lot of people have, even Napoleon put it to them at one stage. You call them a race, and they say, no, we're a religion, and then you pick them up on the religion, and they say they're a race, and I think they just, it's a bit like you're saying about the woman. That's the trick we use when we tell everybody they're anti-Semitic. It's, they'll use whatever tricks they can to get out of a tight spot when you try to pin them down, and I think that's just the way they are. Anyway, I'll throw that back to us. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Lindsay, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Frank Lowy, right? He came to here in 1954. He's sort of a Jew from, I think he's a Polish Jew or something. Have you looked into that guy?
Yeah, some time ago, I just looked up Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably not all that correct, but I just remember that he was in one of the groups, like Haganah, or so, I just can't remember which one.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the groups in Israel, who are going around killing people. So he was in that, and I would have thought that when he came to Australia, that they probably set him up as part of the, a thank you for what he'd done over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only guessing at that. I'm saying.
What are your thoughts now that the soccer is all being split apart now? Have you seen that in the news?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about when the soccer first thing broke. I went in and I was going to do an article on it, and I was looking at just seeing whether Sepp Blatter was a Jew, because his behaviour was very like a lot of other Jews I've seen, and I couldn't find anything at all. It suggested he was from a village in Switzerland, and so he was actually Swiss. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but even Jewish sites weren't claiming him. But in so doing, I found that I'd say more than 50% of the football clubs in Europe and Britain and elsewhere were either managed or owned by Jews, and I was quite taken aback. So I'm just wondering whether these people started seeing a non-Jew starting to rip off millions of dollars out of the system and thought, no, we can't have this. Yeah. It's all right. It's all right while we're doing it, but we can't have other people doing it. So I'm being facetious there, but no. So I don't really know. I don't really know what the what the motivation is there, but I do know they really got the finger in the football pie. And with Lowy, what got me was a lot of people were suggesting that the 40 million had come out of his pocket, but no, it was taxpayer money, and now they're suggesting, there was something in the paper today suggesting that it wasn't just this money that was sent to, was it the Caribbean or something, to help young football clubs that was stolen. There was other stuff as well, and there was something else in the paper today talking about Germany, and Germany is supposed to have sent rockets or something to I just can't think which it might have been one of the Arab countries, so that they would get the vote, so that they would hold the World Cup in Germany. So this goes deeper than anything we can imagine.
Or Qatar, the Qatar thing. Hey, look, the thing with me is like I'm very passionate about 9/11. I don't know if you know that I'm a sort of fakeologist. There's something about those Twin Towers coming down, and there were two, what do you call it? Frank Lowy was, or is, in charge of Westfield. Do you know Westfield Corporation? Yeah. So he's got blood on his hands, all over his hands, when it comes to 9/11. Sorry, dude. I don't know if you've looked into this. I think he's got blood all over his hands when it comes to those towers coming down, and just as much as like that. Who was the guy that was supposed to have?
Larry Silverstein.
Silverstein. There you go. You got Silverstein. Yeah, but Frank Lowy has just got just as much blood on his hands. Jewish blood on his hands. I know that sounds anti-Semitic. I'm just saying that this guy is who was the guy that ran New York at the time, that bald guy, the mayor.
Was Giuliani?
Was he Jewish? Is he Jewish?
I don't know. It sounds like an Italian name, but that doesn't stop him being
Italian.
But it doesn't stop him being an Italian Jew. Because remember here that it was a while ago, or maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big thing about running child pornography and what have you in Italy, and they were blaming it on certain people. But in fact, when you looked into it, they were actually Jews. They call them Italians or whatever, but they were. And this happens a lot of the time. The same with Russia. These Russian criminals or Russian mafia. Well, they're Russian Jews, most of them, and that's the problem where we come up all the time, because they're running the media. They can just hide the fact that these people are Jews, and I think you find that happens a lot of the time.
That's really.
But when you're talking about Lowy, sorry, I'm dominating the conversation, but I'll be very quick.
Go for it, Lindsay.
When you're talking about Lowy, that Westfield that went up in Africa, I don't know whether you remember that or not, but that was as shonky as they came. The photographs there of people, they look like they were paid actors as well, and of course it brought the whole thing down, and he claimed his insurance there. Now we'll get the arse suit of us if we start saying that he blew it up for insurance, but that's 2 in a row now you're talking about that are a little bit suspicious. You're talking about the New York one, and now you're talking about this other one.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
seems
let's just get this straight. Lindsay, they took the 2 towers down as an insurance job, is what you're saying. That's great. I like to hear that.
Yeah, that's what everybody's been talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry. Look, you can go back to, like, I think it is one of the tricks, like, not necessarily even on the big conspiracy, big agenda side of things, but it is just some of the biggest things do happen to be very beneficial when it comes down to the insurance side of things, and when it comes down to the consolidation side of things, their fortunes go up and everyone else's fortunes go down, and it sets them up for the next couple of decades. All the shares that they have interest in, and all their mates that are on the boards of the national security companies and the airport companies like the Bushes and the Carlyle stuff, and they all just they step for life after that. The national the debt goes through the roof, all the contracts, Halliburton. It's really massive. You can even look back to the Titanic. That was also a massive, not necessarily the fact that they planned to run into an iceberg, but that became a massive insurance job. And there was
I wasn't around for that one.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. you're right.
Have you guys heard about the SS? It had an identical. The Titanic had an identical sister ship called the.
It was called the Olympic.
The Olympic. That's right. Yeah. So that there was a whole. I read a whole. Went on a rabbit hole one night and just. It's basically more than likely that the Titanic was actually the Olympic, which had already been involved in all these other crashes, and it was a piece of junk. And they just patched it back up, put the different name on it, and then sunk it. That sort of thing. And then the brand new ship, the sister ship.
Okay. I'd not heard that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, I recommend having a look into that, Lindsay, because it is very interesting, because it goes back to the Federal Reserve thing, and all the dissidents that were against the Federal Reserve, all the big business guys were on the boat, and at the last minute, so to speak, the Morgans and the Rockefellers and the guys who were pro Federal Reserve trying to get it passed all pulled out sort of last minute. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a surprise, isn't it? Yeah. But, sorry, I'm being facetious again.
Go.
What intrigued me was that if you look at our language from a few generations ago, you always had, they used to talk about Jewish fire sales. Any time a building burnt down, that's what they'd call it, was a Jewish fire sale.
Yeah.
And people would say, if you do business with Jews, you'll pay your Jew tax. That was a quite common saying a few generations ago, meaning you'll get the arse done out of you. That's so. This has been around for a long time. It's not just something that Lindsay's come up with because he's an anti-Semite. It's bred into us, and probably for good reason, because enough people have been robbed over the time. So, and I keep saying to people, you really need to go and read that book, The Riddle of the Jew's Success, because it's got all of this stuff in there going back, into the 1700s all the way through. It's a really interesting book. And the thing I liked about it most of all was it actually reminded me of what we were like back then and how much now we've become Judaized now. And our thinking, you're talking about people being rude and all this, we do this all the time because they've actually converted us and pulled us into the Jewish box. Whereas before that, we were own people. And it's good to get a book that was written back then and go back and see what we were like then and think, yeah, that sits well with me. I wish we were like that now. That's how I feel about it. So really I'd recommended it. I don't know I don't think we've got a link here. I could put a link on for people to go and get a copy of the book.
What was the name of it again, Lindsay?
It's called The Riddle of the Jew's Success.
Riddle of the Jew's Success.
And what I might do is in our group chat at the side, I might go and get a link and put there, and then for somebody who knows what they're doing, they might be able to put it over for the people who are listening to us, so they can get a link.
Yep, excellent. We can try that. I'm fascinated with the Titanic story though, about all of the Greenpill telling us that all the people who were opposing, or the majority of the people who were opposing the Federal Reserve were on board. That is, I'd never heard that before. Fascinating. So we were these false flags from history just keep these deliberate disasters. They just keep coming out of the woodworks, don't they?
They always go further back than you think. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I keep questioning back further and see when did it all really start. Like we've now started talking about World War II, World War One. Even the revolutions, the French Revolution, the American Civil War, like that sort of, as in when they tried to remove themselves from the British Empire, which they're still, or whatever that empire was controlled by, they're still under that one way or another, like a plantation of it. So even that was, I think, paid for, both sides, manufactured to give them some feeling of independence, but really they're right back under that these days, financially especially.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, we might welcome the newest member to the panel for Sunday sessions without John LeBon, and that is Matrix Decoded. How are you going tonight, Matrix? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Enchanted. Hey, everyone on the panel. Lindsay, Wallo, Jim. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's easing into my Sunday nicely with a Sunday session.
It's a good start to the day for you on the northern side of the world, and well, I don't know, what direction would you be on a flat Earth?
North. Yeah, north.
North, and a nice end to the southern side of the plate, for us over here. We were just talking. You jumped in, and you might have heard the end of the conversation there. What do you think? How far back do you think, Matrix, these deliberate, controlled disasters and events go?
I think it goes a long, long way back, much, way back into history. I mean, certainly, documented in the last 100 years, there were various events, done to start wars and used for political gain. So I think it's been around for a long time. I mean, tying into the Protocols of Zion, which we mentioned last week, and the whole the Jewish aspect of things. I mean, I've been listening for the last 10, 15 minutes or something, and talking about 9/11 and Larry Silverstein. I mean, an interesting name pops up is a guy called Abraham Silverstein, and I don't know if he's related or not, but he is a top boy at NASA. He was a top manager at NASA, and he named the Apollo missions, and he's responsible for so much of NASA's stuff. So you've also got like Werner von Braun, who most of us have heard of, and he came over on Operation Paperclip. So you have basically a load of Nazis working with Jews at NASA, which I find quite interesting. And the name Abe Silverstein is pretty much unheard of, but he's responsible for so much. He ran NASA for a long time, and he's someone who's pretty much under the radar. So I just wanted to mention his name. He's someone people should check out.
Yeah, the connections they're mind-blowing, aren't they? Operation Paperclip's one of my hubby's favourite topics, and we regularly post a meme that says the Germans didn't lose World War II, they just moved to America, and I love it.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. You follow the money trail, follow these little tentacles, and it can be quite mind-blowing. And honestly, I think, I'm not sure that it was Greenpill or Lindsay that said it early on when we first went live with the show. Sometimes some people just can't handle how deep the rabbit hole can go, and when you start really discussing all of these connections, it can make a lot of people uncomfortable, I think, and maybe that's where we're getting that kickback from, where people think that you're being anti-Semitic or anti-Islam or any of those things, when in actual fact it's not the average person that we're criticizing. It's the 1% at the very top, and that's where all the tentacles lead.
Yeah, we're looking at people who control these organizations, and most of them happen to be Jewish, which is very curious, so how can we not talk about the Jewish aspect when so many of them are in control of corporations and various government organizations.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really
it's not our fault. Yeah. Sorry, Jim. Go. I was just going to say it's not our fault that they're Jewish and they're the ones pulling the strings. We have to talk about them. It's not anything personal. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say that is the one-sidedness of the politically correct Marxist agenda. Like you notice a lot of people talking about how there's so many white people at the top, so many white rich people on boards of companies, and all rich white men run the world. Why is that so prominently talked about? And they sort of try to force diversity upon the boards of companies and all that, and that's just, everyone's allowed to hate the rich white man, but you start talking about any other rich minority group, and that's a big no-no, and you're a racist. So that's when you can really tell that it is part of that agenda. Like, why can't you can call one group for what it is, and you can't call the other group for what it is.
Amen.
That's what makes it obvious in my eyes.
Well, that's one of the things that people say is that the Jewish power is the fact that you can't talk about Jewish power. That's what Jewish power is, and it's quite true, isn't it? Really.
Definitely. If white people had so much power, why would you be allowed to criticize them and
Yeah.
you know, hate on them in movies, etc., and just portray them always as the racist and the the evildoers, the conspirators? You know, it's always the rich white man at the head of everything. That's a common Hollywood thing, but they never have a rich Jewish person behind the scenes, when really you can look at the most basic level of who owns majority stakes in these big corporations, and who, you know, Federal Reserve, the boards of, you know, all the big banks, all the big Fortune 500 companies. They're all right there. It's not hidden from us, but it's hidden from the public, sort of thing. Like we all know that's commonly accepted, that they do have an overrepresentation of wealth and power, political power. The lobby AIPAC in America, that's just commonly known as an extremely strong lobby, and America does the bidding for Israel and the Middle East and all that, but that's very known to us. But when it's, you know, I think the rest of the world just seems to think, oh, that's just one group, you know. It's really the white people still somehow, like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you fellas have a talk.
There was a graphic that during the last big Palestine protesting, there was a graphic going around. There was a boycotting movement, and they listed all of the companies and products, and it took up, well, it was like 3 graphics actually, because there were so many of them, and it was one of those graph type of ones, and in the middle it had there were only 4 or 5, and they were Zion Jewish-owned companies, and every other one of these thousands, and there were thousands of companies, were owned back to them. So that's the deception that the general public, you know, you see a little brand name that we think, oh, that's an Australian brand. If you actually see the parent company of that, and then the parent company of that, and then the parent company of that, it actually leads back to one of these 4 or 5 Zion-controlled companies, and they literally own hundreds and hundreds of the big, huge corporations. So they have a complete monopoly on it. So yeah, it's pretty hard pressed to critique it when they're the only ones who really own it.
Yep.
What do you reckon?
There doesn't seem to be any such thing as monopoly rules, or, you know, over consolidation. You know, like they literally, there's no such thing as conflict of interest either. You look back at the health sort of level. There's these weight loss companies are owned by these big food companies. You're getting Coke Zero advice, you know, on a diabetic plan. Coke Zero is a recommended product on there. Like, it's Weight Watchers is owned by Cadbury, something like that. You know, it's on all levels. The company that provides the problem provides the solution, and that's not a conflict of interest.
Absolutely, and that's the argument I've had, you know, in a lot of things, especially though the health side of things, and vaccines and medicines in general. The pharmaceutical companies, the ones who have the invested financial interest in the outcome, are the ones who are paying for and funding the research. That is a massive conflict of interest. And how are people missing that connection just in general is beyond me. That's one of the things that really, you know, drives me nuts. And when I come up against those sort of issues, they're the days when I just have to go and watch an episode of Housewives, because my brain explodes. I don't understand it. But that conflict of interest is across the board. What do you think about that, Rollo? Do you see the conflict of interest in everything, or?
Absolutely. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm glad you just allowed me to the Coke Zero thing and the vaccines, I love the way that you just, I think that's a circle to me, because Coke Zero obviously has aspartame. Aspartame, we know what aspartame is, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Poison.
that's a very interesting story.
Yeah,
How it was passed on.
exactly, aspartame. And vaccines is something, so everybody who's listening, do a shot, because that's what Rorschach said. Every time you guys talk about vaccines, you've got to do a shot.
Oh.
So it's a game. It's a game that everybody who's in the chat, that means you have to do a shot.
Wasn't
So
Raw on one night? Is that the same Raw that joined us on Sunday sessions one time?
The Jew, anti-Jew, or whatever.
He seemed pretty normal when he was on.
I don't know what.
I seem to remember, but it seems like now he's sort of shilling a bit in the chat, which is a bit weird.
Is he shilling in the chat? Yeah, well, fuck you, Raw. Fuck yourself.
It does seem pretty obvious especially when it's multiple issues. Like, we're all free thinkers here. We can all question things and point them out for what they are, and without having our own, like if we try and start to be really defensive of a particular thing that most people commonly accept, as in our movement, commonly accept that it's questionable, and you start to jump in front of it and say, no, vaccines are good. There's no conflict of interest. There's no money there. There's no damaging stuff. Just Merck. They're good. That just good, honest corporation making money out of helping people out as a convenient, side thing. But someone trying to shill for that in this group is always going to get talked down, laughed down. So it's weird to me, but.
And obvious too, because it's not just, and that's what I found. I'm like, I don't know whether his account's been hacked and it's somebody else. I don't know, because it's not. I would understand it if it was just one thing and he particularly took offence, at that. But it seems to be every topic we talk about. Like Rollo just said, we've got to take a shot when we do the vaccines, or we're anti-Semitic when we're talking about Zionism, and it's everything. It's very strange. I've wondered at it too.
Listen back to that episode of Sunday Sessions where he joined us, or one or two, whatever, and just listen to what he was saying, and if he was actually on board at that point and then had a backflip, or whether he never actually really joined in on those particular subjects. But yeah, it is interesting.
Very interesting. But yeah, the vaccines too, the pharmaceutical companies, you go back up to the owners, and again, you're looking at the Zion companies. I mean, their fingers are in everything, absolutely everything. You've been quiet for a little while there, Lindsay. What do you think it's all connected?
Oh yeah, and how far back does it go? Like we were saying, I think it was last week, I was saying that once the Jews got kicked out of Britain, I think it was in 1295, something like that, you had about 400 years before they came back in again with William of Orange, and the people in England just went, it was like, freedom, we got all this time off, we can go and build monasteries or go and help each other or do whatever we want. And when you look at what they had then compared to now, in the way of labour-saving devices, we should be just living the life of Riley. We shouldn't have to work at all. No. When you consider, even I keep coming back to this. I know it gets boring for people who've heard it, but even if you think about the miners who used to go in there with pick and shovels under Newcastle, and they could still earn a good living to keep their family, which were quite large families then. And now the same work is being done by these great big things that pick up 50 tonne in one scoop. Where's the benefits going? It's the same with when I was in northern New South Wales, there were people there who used to be carters of grain, and they'd tell you about sewing up the bags and loading them on the shoulder and putting them on the back of a 3-tonne truck, taking them into town, carrying them up to the top of the silo. And now you never ever see anything under a B-double or a road train carting wheat, and it's all bulk. And you've got harvesters taking 70 tonne an hour off. Where are the benefits there? We're not seeing them. Somebody's seen them, but we're not. And
No.
we've now got a wife and a husband both having to go out to work. Nobody's there to help the kids in the tuck shop. Then school can't get tuck shops. Anyway, I won't go on about it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just we really are slaves, and it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll just leave that with him.
Empowering us rather than disempowering us. Enchanted and I were talking about that before the show on Skype, as in we can, the people that invent these things to make things easier, to make things less man hours, they have the good intentions. They should be removing us from those meaningless sort of mindless tasks. They should be empowering us, but it seems, especially technology these days, it's further enslaving us. It's like they can't allow us to be too free, too much free time. There's got to be a ratio of slavery to time to spend your money. That's what makes a good productive slave society. Otherwise people would, I don't know, the things that they enjoy, like playing golf and stuff or whatever, and wouldn't be as meaningful because everyone would be doing it. Everyone would have free time all the time. That's sort of my view of society, is that what the things that the 1% or the 0.001% enjoy with all their money. It's if everyone was doing it and everyone just was relaxing and not having to work and having to make all that money to pay for all those things they don't need, and they, it's like they need that relativity. They need to be that much higher than everyone else, otherwise they don't feel as well off. Something like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, no, I think so, but I also think that like in Alaska, I think I've talked about that too, where I don't know whether it still is, but it used to be that you got paid a dividend by the government. They'd invested all their resources money, where they had oil and what have you, and they invested all that, and they were getting a dividend, which they then distributed to people. So you could get like 10 grand or whatever it was, once you'd lived there for 6 months, or once a child was 6 months old. And so consequently, lots and lots of fathers were taking time off. So they weren't working 30 or 40-hour weeks. They were, working a 20-hour week and spending time with the kids. And you can't have that, because the kids then would become properly educated. And we don't want that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And this is, and what you're talking about now, and you are articulating it, both of you and Greenpill, way better than how I have obviously tried to articulate it in the past. But this is what I have spoken out against: the current money system. It can't sustain itself, especially not in the technology age. And I watched a little 11.5-minute clip on YouTube the other day, and I've put the link. Pardon me. Oh, frog jumped in my throat right then. I've put the link in the side chat, and I will give it out to the public chat as well. It's called, and it is on the Venus Project YouTube channel, but it was very insightful into a very concise explanation of how do you blend technology and the human, work ethic. How do you blend that? And the title of it, it's called JV King, The Future of Government. And it's deceptive in its sense that it has all of this other stuff in it, but it does explain very well how that is supposed to happen, how technology can do most of that for us, and that we actually don't have to work 60 hours a week, that we should be able to have equal time with what I have heard called in the past, they call them the 4 pillars of life. That's home, community, faith, and self. So you need to have equal time in that. And yeah, this model that we have currently, this money system model, it doesn't allow for that. And that little video really explained it way better than I ever could. And I was quite happy that I found it. And I'll just link it for everyone else in the chat. But I totally agree with you, Lindsay. And as far as what we were saying about how far back it goes, I mean, even back in the time of Jesus, historically, whether you believe Jesus existed or not, in that time frame, we have the money lenders being thrown out of the the churches and things like that. So, well, I suspect that it's been a lot longer than a few hundred years, that it's probably been a few thousand. I don't know if you would agree that it goes back that far, Rollo?
Hello?
We've lost. Yep, we've lost him. What about you, Lindsay? Do you think it goes back that far?
Yeah.
Way back to Jesus?
I can't give you the books at the moment. I'd have to go and look them up and show you. But there are books on this going right back to the Roman Empire, because they came out of Judea, or wherever you like to call it, and across to Rome, and they were causing trouble there. They were killing people. They were causing trouble. You know, there's a long history of it that goes way back. And you know, I think it's well worth people reading these things. But I just can't do it off the top of my head. If we have a break later on, I'll go and dig out the book and I'll see if I've got a link to it. But yeah, no, and they were sawing people, you know, like hundreds and hundreds of people from head to foot, sawing them down the middle with cross saws and all this sort of stuff, you know, just bizarre sort of things.
Wow.
No. Yeah, so you're looking at a brutal people who really don't care about anybody else. It's almost like it's like a psychopathic gene they've got or something. And this whole thing about, you know, they base it on the biblical thing where you're not allowed to loan on usury to your brother, but you can loan on usury to anybody else. And so it's not a matter of you can. They almost taken that to be, yes, you will. And that's what they've done everywhere they've gone.
Well, the usury laws, I mean, usury was outlawed for a long, long time. It was a crime. And then, you know, the big push in the 20s and the 30s to have usury removed as a crime. And that has, you know, paved the way for the theft of wealth from the rest of us, you know.
Yeah, entirely. And you go first, because I've had a fair bit to say.
And Matrix, you wanted to jump in there?
Sure. Yeah, the Bible. I mean, how it talks about the moneylenders being thrown out of the temple. I mean, you know, that book, the Bible itself, is, you know, the most you know, popular book in the world. I mean, it's everywhere, and Christians have read it for so long. You know, and people generally have an understanding of that story, but they don't seem to relate it to the world we live in today for some strange reason. You know, and what, you know, Jesus, you know, he was kind of a rebel and against the authorities and against the corruption. And you know, for 2,000 years, let's say, I mean, such an idea, you know, of you know, from those kind of biblical days. And I mean, I know the Bible came later, but for such a long time, we've been aware of the concept of the money changers and usury, and yet we don't, you know, people don't really, most people don't really think about it, which is quite strange. A couple of other points I wanted to make. You know, Zion. You know, my name's Matrix Decode, and you know, I'm a big fan of the Matrix. But you know, it's written by the Wachowski brothers, who, if I'm not mistaken, are Jewish, and you know, one's become a female now. But Zion is the mainframe in the film The Matrix. You know, it's like the center, and you know, the word Zion, I looked it up and the meaning of it. You know, and it's like according to the freedictionary.com, it's the historic land of Israel as a symbol of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, Israel, a place of religious community regarded as sacredly devoted to God, and an idealized harmonious community or utopia. You know, it's also to do with, I saw something about it being Mount Zion in Jerusalem. You know, and you know, other aspects of like the word Zion. It was the Olympic Games. You know, we were talking about football earlier, but the Olympic Games. You know, and the 2012 logo, you know, perfectly formed the word Zion. And another thing about the word Zion is that, you know, it's also a scion, S-I-O-N, and you know, this has been incorporated into our language. You know, words like submission, intention, proposition. You know, so the word Zion has been, you know, integrated into the English language, so that, you know, so that we can have to use it so much. And to do with like false flags and stuff like that. I think it was Archduke Ferdinand. His the assassination of him. False flag? Or maybe I'm a bit mistaken. But how wars are started, I've sort of gone off a bit on a tangent there. But like, the First World War was started over something so petty and small. The Vietnam War, and what was it?
It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I might let Green Pill jump in there. I saw you.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of the Matrix. Hence the name Green Pill, like red pilling people, as in waking them up from the system. And I also do question the fact how things like big concepts like that make some of us really think and see it as an analogy to life, as in, we're slaves to a system. And in that movie, there's the upfront slave system where he has a really mundane job and he's a computer guy by day, and his boss is a real jerk, and he's a slave in that system, and just the rat race. And then there's also the actual further slave system behind the scenes, which is everyone's plugged in and machines are harvesting humans. But yeah, I wonder how stuff like that gets into Hollywood, made by big Hollywood guys, like you're saying. Maybe they are so confident that they can just put that stuff out there and just see how many people actually compare it to real life, or just say, oh, that was a good movie. Like, and hence all the names in it, the Nebuchadnezzar, Zion, Morpheus. I guess they all mean something to them. Like, it's that they're really into their symbolism and their all that stuff. But I sort of forgot what we were talking about before the Matrix. But I'm carried away talking about the Matrix.
Yeah.
Do you think the reason they don't see it is the chemical sort of, I don't want to say dumbing down, because I hate that phrase, but there really isn't. It's like all of these chemicals, and I've often wondered this: why are we awake? Why did we see that? Like, I'm watching, we talked earlier about like the Matrix. I was watching Snowpiercer, which we might have a discussion on here shortly. But I watch these things on TV. I watch a documentary or a movie, and I see it. You see that bigger picture, and in your brain, the cogs turn, and all of this stuff happens. And why does that not happen to the majority, or does it happen and they ignore it? What do you think, Matrix?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a hidden in plain sight. It's like they put it in our faces so we can't see the wood for the trees. It's something like that. I mean, some people like to term it as lesser magic or something like that, a way of confusing us and telling us exactly what they're doing and so on. I mean, it's like in so many different movies. I mean, The Matrix is a really good example. I remember seeing that film when it came out in the late 90s, and I thought it was, wow, what a great film, what a cool film. But I didn't really grasp the concepts back then that were hidden in the movie, or obvious. It seems so obvious to me now, having watched it many times.
Do you think that it is something to do with, though, that some of us are less susceptible to the chemicals that are being bombarded on us, like the vaccines and all the chemicals in our food, the GMOs, the fluoride, all the stuff they're spraying? Do you think that maybe some of us are less susceptible to it, or where our systems are stronger, and that has anything to do with why some of us can see it and some can't?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, I think there's a spiritual side to people waking up and being able to see things. I also think there's like what our lives in general, how we've lived our lives, and what things we've been exposed to. I mean, how much fluoride we take, how often we brush our teeth. Have we had vaccines as a child? Different things like that.
So it's a combination, you think, of environment and how we're raised.
yeah, I think there's that, and I think there's also some kind of spiritual element to it. You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the truth community, let's say, or most people would believe that there's some kind of creator. I haven't seen that many atheists, tackling these kind of subjects.
Yeah, I'm anti-religious, but I certainly believe in a higher power.
Yeah.
So I'm not atheist, but I don't believe in the I certainly don't believe in the organised religions view of it. That's for sure. I might just jump over and see if Rollo has any comments on that. Why some of us
absolutely.
wake up and some of us don't. Do you have any ideas on that?
I'm a non-theist.
A non-theist.
Do you know what a non-theist is?
I don't.
Well, there's an atheist. There's a theist, i.e., people who believe in religion, right? Okay.
Yep.
And there's atheists who are it's like herding cats. That just actively don't believe in a god or whatever. And I'm a non-theist. I don't believe in the system. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So can I play a song?
I don't know if you can try. I don't know if the screen share will work because we're probably due for a bit of a musical break. Before you do, though,
I was going to jump in.
I'll get Jim and Lindsay. They can have their piece, and then after that we might have a quick musical break. Yeah, go for it. Jump in, Jim.
Yeah, like really interesting back and forth about the combination of things in what way, what puts someone to sleep or wakes them up or keeps them asleep, and that cognitive dissonance, that conditioning. I think it's a multi-pronged attack on their half. Whether it's some of it's on purpose, some of it's just a product of our environment, like the endocrine disruption, androgenizing males and females. You're getting reproductive issues and sterility issues and all that just from BPA plastics and pesticides and things that are making us not a normal version of a normal male, normal female, back and forth, that sort of thing. So you're getting that, you're getting the fluoride, you're getting the endocrine disruption, the pituitary gland, you're getting this whole combination of things that are just messing with us. There's some aspects of the control system. You're getting that media conditioning, what you're brought up learning about, what you're not taught, schooling, the way you're taught. Like looking back, just freak coincidence that I was looking back through my sort of school stuff and seeing how I used to write about stuff and what I used to learn about. And one of my English teachers back in high school was actually teaching us about Animal Farm and sort of George Orwell stuff and propaganda in movies and films. So that might have planted a seed, in my mind back then, which then lay pretty dormant until I was sort of late teens.
Have you got something to say, though, dude? Have you got something to say? Where are you going with this?
Just rambling about that same
subject. You seem to be a bit wishy-washy.
Rollo, we're just having a conversation. He's
all
going.
All right, my bad.
Yeah, you're bad. He's just having insight. He's just an insight.
All right then.
And I think
just going back to Matrix and stuff, I was just trying to find out, how it makes someone.
I just want to hear a clear, concise, positive, actual. I am against this. All right, so 9/11. Okay, 9/11 was a big fucking bullshit story,
False flag.
All I'm hearing is like wishy-washy stuff from this guy. Like, come on, help me out here.
Well,
9/11 was a false flag. Every war that we've had recently has been a false flag.
Right.
Caused by something out of nothing, and people have benefited from it.
Where are you going with this? Where's the positive?
Rollo. No.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Look, this is just what we're doing is chatting about his view on how does he see the connection of why people wake up and people don't, and that some people aren't necessarily as a personality type and just come in with the hard-hitting stuff. Some people are a bit gentler and a bit softer with it, and we have to respect that. We have to respect that we have a different way of expressing ourselves. So you just sit there and chill.
Thank you, sweetie.
And you can come in with the A personality like me and go, these fuckers have ruined our planet.
If I listen to some music in the background, is that okay?
Well, if you put yourself on mute, you can, because otherwise it'll feed back into everyone. So yeah, look, we all have different ways of expressing it, but I agree with you, Green Pill. I think it is a combination. You have to put yourself on mute. Let me see if I can do it.
That's better.
There we go.
Yeah, I see where he's coming from. Like, it doesn't offend me. I just assume that in this movement we all sort of know that all those things are obvious. You know, the false flags, the war on the people. Like, yeah. But I guess I do talk pretty broadly. But
I think you made some really good points, Jim. Green Pill. I was really enjoying what you were saying, and I have no idea where that statement from Rollo came from. I mean, it was pretty bizarre to me. I appreciate what you're saying, Green Pill.
All right, thanks for that, mate. Yeah, I guess he's more about solutions than just shit talking, and but yeah, everyone's journey is different. And
I think he's just very A personality type. He's like just hard hitting. Say it, and sometimes I think, and look, sometimes I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I get impatient when I am listening to some people. Although with Green Pill, I really enjoy the way that you speak and present it, so I don't get impatient at all. But there are definitely people I have listened to that I do get a bit impatient with. That's just something I think we've all got to learn to appreciate each other's modes of delivery. We all have a different way to do it, and I like the way that you speak, Green Pill. So we'll keep Rollo on the chill pill.
That's mine.
He gets a bit excited when he's had a few to drink.
Lindsay still with us?
Yeah, he's still with us. He just put his music on, so I got him on mute so he don't listen to the music. All right, so Lindsay, I'm going to throw to you. What do you think? The combination of like what both Matrix and Green Pill were saying, is it a combination of environment, chemicals that just some of us just are not as susceptible to others, or do you think it might be something else?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all these things. I'll give an example of, if you're a kid brought up in the bush, you've got a much better appreciation of what's going on around you. Animal tracks and all manner of things like that. Whereas if you're brought up in the city, you don't have that. And I think it probably something similar going on here. And I think it's sliding scale. I don't think it's those who are switched on and those who aren't. I'll give an example. I thought, I was looking out for things and seeing things, every time I see something in the paper, I get a fair idea of what connection that has to something else. And then I met a fellow the other day, we were talking, and he was talking about a movie he'd watched. I think it was They Live. Remember, John, I put a few snippets of that on here one night. And they were referring to some sunglasses. And he said they actually said these were Hoffman sunglasses. So he then traced that down and followed it through to who was producing the movie, and anyway, it went off at an angle and saying these Hoffman sunglasses had a certain, that they made their sunglasses for the military, and he was just following it down tracks that I'd never even thought of. I'd never even saw that when I saw the movie. So I'm just wondering what else is there, like whether it be the Matrix movies or what other movies have things where they actually say something that we don't switch onto, whereas some people do, because they're looking for that all the time. They're looking for the minute, whereas we're just sort of looking at a broader sphere. And that's my view. And I don't know what it is. I think it might be a combination of all these things, but it might also be the way we've trained by other people or trained ourselves to be observant or not observant. And anyway, I'll see if anybody else has got anything to say about that.
Well, we might let Rollo. He can have his say now, and I'll take him. Oh well, he's off mute now. So if he wants to unmute himself and he can jump back in and let us know what his take is on the on why some people are waking up, or actually, well, why can't we unmute? Are you there, Rollo? No, he's got to unmute himself. I can't. Well, all right. So what I'm going to try and do is, while we work that little technical difficulty out, there was a problem last week with the screen sharing. Oh, there you are. I'm trying to get you off mute.
All right, sweetheart. All I wanted to say was, it was beautiful what he was saying there. They live at the minutiae of just what people have to say. It was a wonderful movie. That it was done by a guy called, what was his name now? He was a musician.
John
Carpenter. Yeah, Carpenter. There you go. You know who he was. Yeah, and he is that was a fantastic piece of work. And when you put your glasses on and you took your glasses off, you scumbag, and who are you? And you have to watch the movie to understand. You have to have understood. And I'm glad that Lindsay is a massive fan of that film. It's not the hugest, bestest film, but it's good on how it exposes to a lot of people where you live in a world where what's going on in this world. You get a bit older, and suddenly go, wow, what's going on? We're being fucked over. Are we allowed to say fucked over?
Yeah, we are.
Yes. Well, we get fucked over because you're not playing by the goddamn rules. If you're not playing by the goddamn rules, and the goddamn rules mean just be quiet, be polite, and don't get on the internet. Don't say, what the fuck, 9/11 was an inside job, or whatever that, or how you say it, is like, I just fucking think you guys are almost on the same level, where the moon landings were bullshit. Tell me, who here in this fucking people who are here think that the moon landings were real? Does anyone here think the moon landings are real?
Well, actually, speaking of the moon, I don't know. I don't think there's anyone here that thinks they're real. Speaking of the moon, we might try a musical break, and
Right.
When we come back, we might talk about the moon, because I watched something this week that absolutely blew my mind, and I'd not heard it before, and it is an old story. It happened last year. Apparently, an astronaut nearly drowned on the International Space Station, and it blew my mind that people believed this shit. So when we come back, we can tackle the moon landings and astronauts now drowning in their suits in space. So that could be the next the next
All right,
hour's
sweetie. I'm sorry.
topic.
I'm sorry. I got to be excited there, but yeah, thank you.
That's all. That's all right, Rollo. You're allowed to get excited. Although I do have a couple of people skyping me who are wanting to join in, but I'm trying to keep it to the five of us. I don't want to have too many in the chat, otherwise it'll just be crazy, and
No.
everyone might get a
Kick me
go.
off. Kick me off, and yeah, put one of them guys in. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. Kick me off.
You
Yeah,
give us an
I'll be
hour
done.
and let Jack come in, and he can have a chat for an hour, and you can maybe come back again then later.
Yeah. Bump
All
me
right,
off.
cool. But
All
are
right.
you
See ya.
and you'll be in the public chat?
Yeah. I'll just make sure you give me the link in the
I'll do that
Skype.
right now.
Yeah. All right.
I'll
Okay
do
then.
that right now in
Hey,
Skype.
it's lovely to
Oh,
talk to everyone
that
here
was
tonight.
well. Thank you so much for offering to do that, Rollo. That's awesome.
You bet. You bet.
Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
I'll send you the link in Skype for the public chat, and then we can send Jack an
There you
invite,
go.
and he can jump in.
I just got it. Yeah. Bump me off. Bump me off
All
now.
right.
Thanks,
All
mate.
right.
See ya.
See you then. Bye-bye.
See
All
ya.
right then, Rollo. Thanks so much, love. I'm waiting. Everyone can say bye to Rollo if they want.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye, Rollo.
Yeah, see you, mate.
Alrighty. There we go.
And just to answer his question, I am confident the moon landings were done in a studio. So,
Yeah.
and I'm
I
also
think
starting to question the shape of the Earth.
I think we're all confident in agreeing with Rollo that the moon landings were definitely not real. So I've sent an invite to Jack. So that was really nice of Rollo to do that, so Jack could come on in, and he'll join us momentarily. So what I'll do is I'll have another crack at this screen sharing thing. And now I'm feeling under pressure because Mr. John LeBon has joined us in the chat room. So I'm sweating now because he's listening. Feeling under pressure. All right. Now I've found a version of this song done by somebody else. So hopefully this will save me the copyright. And I will have to get the chat to tell me if they've got any sound. So we'll share this, share, and play. And let me know if everyone can hear it. All right, hang on 1 second. That's not working. Oh, technology. I'm not very good at it. All right, this may work. Here we go. Now, yes, it is an X Factor clip, so, but it might save me. So here we go. Why can they just not start it when I want it to?
How are you? Not bad. What's your name and how old are you?
My name is Carmelo. I'm 22 years old.
You come from a very big Italian family.
Yes, my nonna and my nonno have 12 brothers and sisters each.
What about your singing? How do you rate your singing?
I think I rate pretty good, so I'm going to have to ask the rest of you to help me rate.
Oh, my goodness, I hope you are. It's been a really interesting day, to say the least.
No, it's just Stephanie and Alicia here. Okay, you must be very excited. Are you nervous at all?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's not to be nervous.
What are you going to sing today for us?
I've actually decided on Maroon 5 because Adam Levine is my idol, so
Great.
Sunday morning.
Thanks. Good luck.
moments unforgettable. You used to get them all that I give. But things just get so crazy to live and life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday you would bring me back to you. That someday you would bring me back to you. And that may be all I need. Darkness, she is all I see. Come and rest your bones with me. Cause it's so on Sunday morning, and I never want to sleep. Dark and slow, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Unexpected. How did I do it?
And there we go. That was Carmelo Munzone and his X Factor Australia audition. Maroon 5 won't be able to sue me for that. All right, so very graciously, thanks to Rolo, we now have Play joining us in the panel. So welcome to Play. Welcome back to Lindsay, Jim, and Greenpill and the Matrix. How have you been this week, Play?
Yeah, not too bad. Just keeping busy and up to date what's happening. Otherwise, in the middle of rebuilding something in my bedroom.
Excellent, excellent. And what I might do, Lindsay, is I did mean to get to it, and we kind of traversed quite a few little subjects. But when we first got in the hangout tonight, you were talking about a gentleman with Rolo that passed away. Somebody Piper.
Yeah, I've put, if you look in the chat, the group chat, I put a link in there. You'll see Michael Collins Piper.
Michael Collins Piper, that's it.
And that's a link to a website, and it's got the whole story. He was only a young man, and I just remember him writing, a number of books and what have you that I've read. It was a bit of a shock to everybody.
What I was going to ask you, Lindsay, would you mind taking over for 5 quick minutes so I can duck off to the ladies' room and powder my nose, and maybe talk about that and who he was and why that's news. So if I hand it over to you and let you take control.
Okay, well, thank you for that. First of all, I'd like the other members of the panel to give me some idea of their experience with Michael Collins Piper, because you may well have far better experience with him than what I have. So first of all, I'll start with Ben, and because you're on the left of the panel as it lines up on my screen, I'll go with you, Ben, and then I'll work my way through to Jim, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. I don't know. I've not heard the name Michael Collins Piper before, and I'm not aware of any of his work or books.
Okay. If you have a look at the chat on the side, you'll see there's a YouTube link by Enchanted Warrior, and then you'll see me, and I've got it's called The Ugly Truth is a website with a dedication to him. So I don't know whether you can do that, the way you are at the moment, but if you go on that, you'll get a bit of an idea of who he is.
I only see a link from you, Lindsay, when I joined the Hangout. It's
okay.
With all success, so I don't have the link.
Okay, I'll get it and put it in again. If that's
okay. Cool.
Just bear with me. I don't want to be holding everything up either. So what we might do is, in the meantime, if I can get my computer to work, we might go to Jim and just see what he's got to say about it while I go into the website and see if I can find something.
Cool.
Yeah, just reading that little start bit about heart complications. It's always interesting, but then again, people in the alternative community can be, stressed and hounded and die early from natural causes. So, but I've never heard of him in the alternative movement before that. I've heard of some other Australian guys, Max Egan, but yeah, not him.
Okay, no, I think this fellow's an American. But I just remember, I'm not sure what it was or where it was at the moment, but I remember seeing his name and on books and things like that, and he had a good reputation. I can remember reading at least one of his books, so that's all right. There's no hassle. I'm not trying to put you on a spot. I just thought maybe somebody might have a better idea about the man than me. So I'll just go to. Is it Jack, isn't it? Hello, Jack.
Yeah, I'm
hello?
not too familiar with this guy either, so
okay.
You'll have to educate us tonight a little bit.
Yeah. It's a it's a bit sad because I'm mucking around here and having difficulty getting the website up again. No, I'm just holding proceedings up. Okay, I'll just go down and read what's on the. If you bear with me a minute.
Yeah, reading the comments on that link, a lot of people are saying he contributed a lot of information via books and talks and things. So sounds like the guy you're thinking of. Yeah.
I'm sorry to be doing this to you. My computer's just mucking about. I'm sitting. I do press something and it's just taking ages to get through to websites and things like that. So that's probably what's going on. The first thing everybody jumped at was that he'd been bumped off because he'd been causing the Jewish lobby a lot of problems. But that's not necessarily true at all, and it could well be that just he died of natural causes. But the reason I meant it, I just thought a lot of people that know him or know of him, and so I thought, I'll bring it up, but it's not. It's not necessarily the case at all. Okay, I've got this to work now, so I'll just drop that in the chat. Here we go. Okay, there it is there now, the ugly truth. So if anybody wants to go through and have a look at it, I don't know if there's much more. I'll let you have a look at the website yourself, but I don't know there's much more we can say. If he's not on everybody's mind, well, we'll just let it go with that and move on to some other topic. I'd go to Jack because you've just come on the program. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to discuss? We've been having a good old bash about Zionists and all manner of things.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening in before I actually popped up, and
okay.
In regards to education and why people actually wake up to what it is that's being put in front of them, and it is like the Matrix decoded said. There are factors like upbringing. For example, when I was growing up, in a family where my mum allowed me to kind of pick up things without being indoctrinated into it, and she kind of promoted enact free thought and employ your naturally what's happening around you, and you ask questions, she will answer it, for example. And some people, unfortunately these days, are in a family that's not really functional, and they don't have time to actually sit down and talk about and kind of plant the seed in the child's head on how they can approach life and they should be more critical of the surroundings. So, and yeah, chemicals, whatever, it's more prevalent, especially now. And yeah, some do have a susceptibility to, hepatitis B or A shots, and some don't. I don't really have that, so some people aren't just born to wake up now, and some people aren't. It's pretty simple.
All right, thank you for that. Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you got a particular subject you'd like to discuss that we haven't raised already?
Anything. I think Enchanted mentioned talking about NASA and how an astronaut on a space station, was sort of drowning. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear a bit more about this Piper guy, Michael Collins Piper guy, and why you think he was an interesting character, and what things you may have learned from him, and how he's maybe influenced you or influenced the truth movement. Because I don't know anything about him, and so I'm curious about that.
Okay. Well, like an idiot, I just dumped the website a minute ago, so I'll have to go and find that back. Jeez, yeah. I'm doing a fine job. I'm doing a fine job at monitoring this show.
Have you heard him speak before? Watched any videos?
No, I haven't done that. I'd come across his books, and I saw his name all the time in particularly the anti-Holocaust groups. He seemed to have a fair sort of a standing there. That's where I came across his name, and I've got one of his books downloaded on my website that I keep, but I haven't read the book. I'd have to go back and have a look at it. It said on his website, or on that website there, that he had been running a radio show at one stage in America somewhere, and I think he'd had to run away to Coeur d'Alene or somewhere like that. Sort of, they'd been giving him a bit of a hard time, so he'd finished up away. And I'm not very good on the geography of America, but I think Coeur d'Alene is up in the northwest somewhere, isn't it? Maybe other people can help me out there, but I think it's a fair way from the New York set, and I think that's what might have triggered people to be a bit suspicious that if he'd been sort of copping a bit of a lacing and he had to get out of it, that suddenly he should die. It almost sounds like somebody might have done something to him. Now, I don't know. I mean, I've got friends who've just died recently for, whether it be heart attack or cancer or whatever. So it's about the right age. So it's sort of hard to make a decision on it. But I think he's, like somebody else said, he died a man who had with hardly any money. So it's not like he'd made a fortune out of doing what he was doing. I think he might, just like so many other people in this movement, just doing it out of the love of it, and he probably got sucked in, saw the injustice, and he just couldn't get away from it himself. That I know there are lots of people, maybe all you are the same, who just feel that way. They get to the point where they see an injustice and they think, if it's not me, then who will it? So they just throw themselves into it. But it can chew us up and spit us out, and maybe that's what it did to him, the poor bugger. But anyway, I'll let you see if there's anything else you want to talk about. We'll certainly go to the moon thing. But if there's anybody else who would like to discuss this man before we sign off, Michael Collins Piper, you just feel free, jump in, and then if not, then we'll go on to and maybe talk about this moon business.
Yep, just a tangent similar to what we're talking about, possibly just suspected assassinations in the truth movement, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
Could be an interesting topic in addition to the moon stuff, the NASA hoax stuff.
Okay. Well, we'll do that then. Well, do you want to go straight onto that first then, seeing we're already onto that topic? Have you got anything you'd like to add?
Well, so everyone's going to have to take a shot now, but a guy called Andrew Malden, who's really prominent in the really mainstream vaccination, like MD before he went alternative, but he talks about microstrokes and every vaccine doing damage and causing asymmetry in the eyes and things like that. He supposedly had a heart attack in his early 40s, but he was causing massive damage to the vaccination stuff in a very mainstream, peer-reviewed study kind of way. So that's one. That's big.
Yeah, I'm back now, so sorry about that.
No, that's right. You take it.
Thanks, Lindsay. I saw Andrew's videos, and they are absolutely mind-blowing, and I would recommend them to anyone who is listening to find them on YouTube. They're in my playlists on my channel, in my vaccine playlist. What was the name of it? Green Pill, Every Vaccine is Doing Your Child Harm? Yeah,
that sounds right. He had a massive, 8-part series or something that maybe an hour each or something that I watched. Talking about mini strokes within the brain, sort of blocking and damaging blood vessels that cause micro strokes, which, that's like if someone has a stroke, they have a massive stroke, and that usually either kills them or leaves them fully mentally impaired. And he was talking about, every vaccine causing a tiny version of that, which then causes things like you see in people's faces where they've got limp blood vessels or lazy eyes or asymmetry. That's what I get out of it, and especially in children. Obviously, a variety of health issues in some children from vaccinations.
Yeah, and very noticeable in pictures and things. Yeah, it's a absolutely brilliant series of videos, and just suddenly he just drops dead, and I've noticed that with a lot of people in the movement that are getting a lot of truth out there and are sharing information. There was a gentleman I remember, and whatever you think of him, Jesse Ventura did an interview with him, and one of his, what was his show? What's Jesse Ventura's show? Conspiracy Theory, I think that's what it is. He had him on there, and he was one of the people who were talking about the energy weapon use in the 9/11 tower destruction, and the show aired, and 2 days after it aired, he dropped dead of a heart attack. Healthy guy, had no heart problems, so very suspicious circumstances as well. And on that episode, they did talk about that they can actually use this energy weapon to disrupt the heart, so they can actually give people heart attacks. It was fascinating, and that was one of, as I said, Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory episodes on on why the towers fell, and as the lady who wrote the book, where did all the rubble go? So that was interesting, and it's been like that. I think we could just list off. I think I don't know all their names, but just every month you hear of somebody suspiciously dropping off the face of the earth. So it makes you wonder, are they getting too close to the truth? And I think sometimes that probably works against them, because if you think it's suspicious, well, the first thing you're going to do is go and listen to all their stuff. So, there's just going to be more news out there. Would you, I guess most of us would agree to that, is that they're actually giving more fuel to the information if they off these people than if they left them out there. Do you agree with that, Linz?
Yeah, to some degree, but I think they just work on the principle, it's only going to be a small number of, dedicated ones, and the vast majority, it's just going to roll over them, so we don't really care. I think they really are getting quite cocky and arrogant now, and with good reason, because it doesn't matter what we say, there aren't that many people that have come online. There are some. And I know Jono was talking today, he thinks it's getting bigger when he goes onto these other sites, but compared to the overall population, we're still way, way behind getting to a point where we're going to have almost like a snowball thing where it's going to start to take off. You know, so they are fairly arrogant, and probably with good reason.
Yeah, well, the arrogance is quite evident in what I was talking about, the video I saw about the astronaut drowning in space. That is just blatant, in your face. We are lying to you, and we're going to sell it like we're on the Home Shopping Network channel, and you are going to buy it. And I just about fell over when I saw the video of it. There was Luca Parmitano, pardon my pronouncing, nearly drowns during a spacewalk. Now, the ABC News, I really would like to see if I can screen share this so everyone knows what we're talking about. But this is an example of the mass I believe it's cognitive dissonance, when something so glaringly, obviously wrong is shown to you and you cannot see through it. If I'd have watched this live, it would have blown my mind, and I don't believe how, you know, the majority of people didn't see this and the whole thing was not busted wide open. But I'll see if I can screen share it so everyone who hasn't perhaps heard of it will know what we're talking about. All right, it's only 1 minute 58. This is just the news clip from ABC News. And then we'll go on from there. So we'll see how we go with this.
This actually is a serious story about a pretty harrowing spacewalk outside the International Space Station.
The search for what went wrong is well underway right now, and we get the unbelievable details from ABC's Gina Sinceri of Houston.
Spacewalks are dangerous, but when Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano started complaining about, well, something wet inside his helmet, the spacewalk partner Chris Cassidy did a double take.
I see these are sweat. No, it's not sweat. It's not sweat.
Hey, Luca, can you clarify, is it increasing or not increasing?
It's hard to tell, but it feels like a lot of water.
Water in his helmet?
Yes, if there's enough water, he certainly had that risk today, and that's why we took it so seriously.
That's right. She said Luca Parmitano was in danger of drowning in his spacesuit, orbiting 260 miles above planet Earth. It was only his second time out on a spacewalk.
I feel a lot of water on the back of my head, but I don't think it leaks from my back. Are you sweating? Are you working hard? It's sweating, but it feels like a lot of water.
It was roughly 2 glasses of water inside his helmet. Mission Control immediately aborted the spacewalk.
Luca, we'll have you head back to the airlock.
His crewmates inside yank off his helmet and grab towels to dry him off. It will take a couple of days before engineers figure out just what went wrong, if the water came from his hydration bag or from the cooling tubes that run through his spacesuit. Ironically, just a day ago, he posted this video as a joke showing how he keeps his shiny head clean. Gina Sinceri, ABC News at the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
All right, so that was the news report, and unbelievably, people bought this cooling system story, and I actually saw the report while I was watching a video by another YouTube video. It was posted on. I'm not sure if it's his video or whether he just shared it, but Archangel Mike. International Space Station hoax. Air bubbles rise. Spacewalks simulated in a massive water pool. Now, obviously, I'd heard that before, and that video shows actual bubbles coming up on the feed, you know, on the stream. And I'm looking at it going, how do you get bubbles in a spacewalk in a vacuum? So obviously it's being done inside the huge, great big pool, and that's how the poor guy nearly drowned, is he obviously got a leak. So they've just twisted this for the news and said, yeah, it's, you know, it's in the water, it's the water cooling tank sprung a leak and filled up his spacesuit. I don't know how the public believe this, and it just, this is, I've been thinking, are we too far gone? Are we just, the majority, are they just too brainwashed that we have no chance in rolling them back? I might go from left to right, and that you're first on my screen there, Ben. So I might go to you first. Can you understand how people bought this, and do you think this is a sign that they are too far gone for us to help?
Yeah, some people are definitely too far gone. That's for sure. I mean, the term cognitive dissonance, you know, the definition really is a mental conflict that occurs when beliefs or assumptions are contradicted by new information. And that's really what's happening here. I mean, it's quite bizarre that NASA would put something out so unbelievable to the mainstream, on mainstream news. It literally points at, something else is going on there. I've seen a lot of the footage where you have astronauts supposedly in space, and there's bubbles coming up, rising up from in the images. The people were analysed and isolated and they appear to be doing all this stuff, like the spacewalks, within a big swimming pool. Where in Russia they have this massive swimming pool with a replica of the International Space Station, and an exact replica, and that's where they train for like 6 months of the year or something like that. And it appears to be the case, that they're faking the spacewalks, and it's a strange story for NASA to put out. But I mean, everything NASA seems to be putting out lately is extremely strange. I mean, the interviews on the space station themselves, that clip there, they're talking about the guy putting something on his head to keep it shiny, and I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? I mean, there's all kind of
water. It was supposed to be water. That's how they give them little sachets of water, and that's how they wash themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the one, allowing water to roam free on the International Space Station has got to affect the the electronics of it. I've made a video analysing one of the long tours on the space station, and every aspect about the tour, the space station tour, is laughable. I mean, completely impractical, illogical, and just a big joke. I mean, from the women's hair, have you seen the big perms that they have? I mean, if they were really astronauts in space, they'd have their hair shaved off. If they're going to be up there for 6 months or however long. They can't wash their hair, they can't wash their bodies, they're not allowed to shower or anything. The stench must be terrible. The toilet
Ben, they are allowed to wash their hair. That's what he was showing us with these little sachets of globulous water. They can wash their hair.
There's another contradiction.
So laughable.
Because in other videos, they say they can't wash their hair.
Mm.
They're not allowed to wash their hair in other videos, and they put some strange stuff in their hair. They take sponge baths, and it's all one big contradiction up there.
It is, isn't it?
The toilet. I mean, the space station toilet is a joke. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that toilet, but they have one. Okay. Well, I made a video about it, but you can check that out perhaps. Well, they've got one little tube pipe, which is they apparently all urinate into, and they got this tiny little toilet which they they do a number 2 in, and it's the tiniest toilet you've ever seen. It's about 3 inches wide, less than that, and they're supposed to squat on that, and not have shit going everywhere. They're supposed to somehow put their
Hit the
anus,
bullseye.
airtight, the anus airtight on this tiny little hole. And it's just completely absurd when you look into what they're trying to make out that they're actually doing up there.
Yes, I've seen some of those videos where they show the hair thing, especially because if you have a look at the footage from the 0G plane, there's a plane that they can go in, and you can. I think it's even open to the public. And if you watch, I've seen videos of people on that plane, and the girls' hairs float up and float back down again. It doesn't just stay up like it's hairsprayed. And trust me, as a girl who used to use a can of Silhouette on a weekly basis, and Silhouette, for those who don't know, is a brand of, it's hair cement. It is not hairspray. It is great stuff when you're doing theatre and shows. This stuff does not move. That's exactly how your hair moves when you've got it filled with hair lacquer. I don't know. I don't know how anyone. I might move on to Green Pill and see what he thinks. Is it just arrogance that they're now putting this out there, these stories out there, Green Pill, and are we too far gone if we're believing this rubbish?
I think it's they're just trying to continually justify their $20 billion or whatever their budget, and I guess it starts with the reason why it doesn't seem outrageous, because it's always been, from birth, it's just the fact, we went to space, we've been there, we're up there, don't question it. It's all magical science stuff, and yeah, people just sort of go, oh, NASA's doing some cool stuff, they do this in the space station, they do that. Like, they don't really question the underlying the science or the improbability or any of that stuff anymore. We're not too far gone.
How someone drowns in space.
Exactly. Yeah, we think the water would float around the helmet if there was no gravity, or But it's like the footage. They've admitted that at least some of the footage at the time was done in a studio, for effect or whatever, or to sell it. And it's like, well, then why wasn't all of it just done? Or why would people not believe that all of it was capable of being done in a studio?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with that giant pool. Like, they're continually training. Sometimes they're in the pool. Sometimes it's footage from up there. That should be enough for people to question. But it's once again, it's that cognitive dissonance. So people have an idea in their mind of what they think, how they think the world runs, and what we've achieved, and the rest of us are at the level where we can actually question everything and say, yeah, that's actually quite improbable, and it's not controversial for us to question it. But for everyone else, they'll just instantly dismiss it and go, oh, that's crazy. You don't believe in space? Like it's weird, it's like it's fringe to be able to question the fact that, someone can claim they did something, get billions of dollars, do whatever they want with the money. It's very simple economics.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Do you think they're too far gone? Do you think they're too far gone for us to help?
I don't think so. I think in my experience, it takes just the right thing at the right time. Usually, in health, it's when people get a really big shock, a kick up the bum. That's often enough for them to at least temporarily start to change their ways, and that journey can be sort of exponential. So you might think someone's just nothing gets through to them, nothing changes, but if something messes with their, whatever they love or whatever they enjoy or whatever they are proud of, like that's often enough for them to say, yeah, you know what, the government isn't doing the right thing by us. Sometimes has to be a massive shift because they're so conditioned and they're so enslaved to that system, they'll die defending it. But for a lot of people, it doesn't take much at all, and we're seeing it more and more that, the things that they're doing and being more upfront about it, a lot more people are sort of saying, no, that's enough. And they start to not necessarily even go into the research side of things, but just they change their view of, they change their trust in the government and the media, they change the likelihood that they'll believe other things or question other things. So everything new that comes out, they then start to question that. Nothing surprises me anymore, sort of attitude.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think most people are, but some people are definitely too far.
Yeah. Do you think, Lindsay? I'll ask you. Do you think they'll reach a point where they get too arrogant. Like this was pretty. This is pretty arrogant. Man nearly drowns in space. People bought it. Do you think that they're going to do something soon that's just going to be too over the top and people are en masse not going to buy it? Or do you think it's more like what Greenpill was just saying, that no, that certain people will just see things like this and it'll be a one at a time kind of a wake up?
When I read these health reports out, in the Australian Round Table, it just constantly amazes me that they can come out with that many things every week, and the wording is so obvious. There's a massive breakthrough, and then at the end of the article, they admit, well, we haven't actually had a breakthrough, we haven't tested it yet, or it won't be any good for 5 or 10 years or whatever. And this is just day after day, week after week, and nobody. I mean, obviously, I say a few things about it, but I don't hear anybody else anywhere running it down and saying it's a load of crap. And I suspect it's a bit like that ash experiment we were talking about a few weeks ago, but instead of just 5 people in a room, it's virtually the whole population. So people are quite prepared to have 2 exactly the opposite things, or have something that's so stupid that their eyes are telling them that this is just stupidity. Like you're saying, bubbles coming up in the water out in outer space or whatever. And yet they still go on with it because everybody else seems to be believing it. I don't know whether that's what's motivating it, but there's obviously something. I'm starting to get to the point where I don't think they can overdo it. Even if they do overdo it, eventually 1 or 2 people might fall out of line, but the vast majority, I think, are just going to keep on keeping on.
And if that's the case, sorry, I'm just obviously that drink I had has decided that didn't want to go down the right way. Do you think if that's the case, Lindsay, if they could be that arrogant, is it still is it worth us continuing to put ourselves out there, or is it time for all of us to put in $1,000 each and go and buy 500 acres in the outback and secede? Is it time for us to bug out, or do you think it's still worth us hanging in there?
Well, I've got an old friend. Well, it's a man and his wife, and they got to the point. Well, they're well in their 80s, and they're saying, "Look, we've had enough now. We're just going to." Do the things that they do. They try not to pay tax and various things like that, but we're not going to go out and put ourselves out in the public anymore because we're getting too old for this. And then I had another old bloke who was talking about going to Bougainville or somewhere like that and get away from it all, And I tried to stress to him, no, there's not going to be anywhere in the world that you're going to escape to. They're trying to make this watertight so that everybody in the world will be under the thumb. So I think you have no alternative. Your back's to the wall. You're going to have to do whatever we can do, because even if you go to a property, it's only a matter of time. When even the protocols talk about, that's why we're going to have land taxes and things, so that people can't be independent in their means. They're well aware of the fact that they don't want people who are independent in their means, who can grow their own food or whatever. They want you in a city somewhere so that they can turn the tap off or on if they want to. So I really do think we're kidding ourselves if we think we can get away from this. It's there, we're going to have to face it, we're going to have to deal with it, and this is the way we've chosen to do it at the moment. I mean, you've got other groups around the world running around trying to shoot people and cut their heads off and whatever, and that's their way of doing it. But, that's my view of it anyway. I'd welcome any other advice.
Yes, well, there doesn't seem to be any really outstanding solutions to it, does it? I might move over to Play and ask him firstly what his thoughts are on the drowning in space, on the arrogance of them doing it, and then might get him to introduce a clip that that I'll share that he's given us, and that is an astronaut saying that they're not really in space. So I did see that, and it was a good clip. So you can have your thoughts and then introduce the clip if you like. Play, and I'll get it set up.
Yeah, I mean, like at the moment, I think it's a matter of testing the ground to see what kind of reception, not perception, people will give them, and to gauge what percentage of people actually catch on to this. And yeah, I mean, there will be, unfortunately, a certain amount of people that will just look at it and move on the next second instead of analysing the information that's being shown. Like in the next video that I passed on to you, it's just hilarious. The guy's just standing there, he's talking about being in space, and then he just says, "Oh, we're in this actual state here in America, blah blah blah, over here," and it's just wondering, is that going to catch on or not?
Yeah, it was a
But yeah, I
Freudian.
just find it ridiculous, and it's just.
Yeah, it was a Freudian slip. He, I think it's about 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute 49 clip, and I think it's right towards the end. But you see, yeah, he does a Freudian slip, and then you can see his body language. He's like wringing his hands, and he's looking off to his left. Not sure. He's probably looking at the director. He's wondering if they're going to cut. I don't know. So for those listening in the chat, the name of the video is NASA Hoax, ISS astronaut, or actonaut, sorry, Chris Cassidy accidentally admits they are filming in the USA. So if we, I'll share this now, and everyone can watch it, and we will have a laugh about it after it's over.
Hello, my name is David. This question is for Chris. What was high school like for you?
Well, it was the 1980s, so the music was different, the hairstyle was different, the clothes we wore different than today, but probably in 5 or 10 years it'll be the same. And in school, I was just like you, probably all of you there. I tried my best. I didn't always succeed, didn't always do well, but I put my best effort into school. Math and science were kind of my favorite subject. I didn't really like English and reading too much, but I've since grown out of that, and I enjoy reading now. And I played a lot of sports. And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
Hello, my name is Steve Owen. I'm a teacher here at Riverside Prep. I'd like to ask you about the stress associated with the long periods in the space station. I'd like to ask Karen, what is the training that you get to cope with that stress and related psychological issues?
Well, for psychological issues, actually, when we are selected as astronauts, we go through quite a vigorous psychological screening process. You certainly don't want somebody who comes up here and has a breakdown or.
Okay, so I'm just going to mute that because they're now just talking the rest of the interview, but you can still see on the screen the little square box around this astronaut on the right. He's glancing around, his eyes are, everywhere. He's very nervous about what he just said. And if you missed it, what he said was he grew up in a little town, and whatever the town name was, he then says, just across the United States from where we are talking to you right now. That's what he says. Now, is that a Freudian slip? I think so. And it's not the only one that I've seen in some of these clips. There's another one out about the Orion spacecraft, and the NASA guy is talking about the Van Allen belts. and how we have to solve the problem of the radiation in the Van Allen belts before we send humans into that region of space. Well, that region of space is between Earth and the Moon. Now, I thought we already solved that problem in the 60s. Mind-blowing. I might start with Play since he gave us the link to that NASA video. What did you think when you first heard that, Play?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Can I hear you or can I hear the humming?
I can kind of hear you cutting out a little bit, but otherwise, my thoughts on the video itself. Yeah, the first time I watched that video, it was just, how could you be that stupid to actually blurt that out, knowing that you're an astronaut, and otherwise, that's not going to fly. The next video that I actually came across in the last week was, the subject of what we actually get shown from space and the sun itself. There was one professor that said that when you're in space, you can't actually see the sun. Only the actual the light reflecting off objects, but if there's no objects being reflected off, you can't really see anything in space. And the point of that is that there was a camera on a station trying to catch the sun from space, and you can blatantly see that the so-called sun was actual a light that was shot straight in the camera. So it just makes you wonder, how often do they actually go in space?
Well, I don't believe, I personally don't believe they've ever been there.
Yeah.
They've never been past low Earth orbit, ever. And although Matrix will probably have an opinion on what space is and what's beyond the dome, what do you think of that clip? And do you think we've ever made it out of low Earth orbit, Matrix?
Yeah, this is the big question, really, isn't it? That's coming up lately. This whole NASA fakery and stuff is really leading us to question. Where are we? Is space real? Can you go into space and so on? And is the ISS space station a reality or not? Is low Earth orbit possible? So it raises a lot of questions, and it's a great subject to investigate. And when one spends time looking at NASA, it all starts to fall apart, and everything they're doing seems to be faked. The video that you just played, I've seen that before, and it appears to be a kind of Freudian slip. I'm not sure if he's addressing the guy, the person who asked the question, and that person's location, but you can clearly see him. Getting anxious and nervous. His whole personality, his whole demeanour changes after having said that. And people are, the astronauts are obviously warned not to talk about where they are really, and so on, other than saying that, keep reinforcing that they're in space. And like on the ISS tour video with Sunita Williams, I bring it up. She keeps talking about them being in space, and it's just to reinforce the narrative. It's like programming, and he slips up there, and you can clearly see him, totally change. And he's supposed to be up there enjoying himself and having a fun interview, and you can see it written all over his face, and the woman with the space hair. They even talk about hairstyles. I think that guy even mentions about the old 80s hairstyles, and which also highlights the absurdity of the hair of the woman in that interview. So
crazy, isn't it? And it's crazy that people look at that and buy it. That's the bit that blows me, is that people are actually, they miss that, and they don't, or if they don't miss it, they refuse to address it, and then they just swallow it hook, line, and sinker. It's unbelievable. I might move on to Greenpill and get his thoughts on that clip and that Freudian slip, and maybe do you think we've been to the moon? Well, no, not to moon, to outside low Earth orbit. Do you think that ISS is up there, or do you think it's all a big hoax?
Yeah, the more I look into it, the less realistic it is. I don't think we've ever landed anywhere, that's for sure. We might send stuff up there, but not with any people in it. You know, like you're talking about the radiation, that just seems to never be talked about. Someday they just magically solved it. We don't seem to be dealing with radiation very well on Earth, let alone, you know, in space. But yeah, the stuff about the hair is laughable. You know, it puts a hole in the whole story. You know, like the moon landing when they're jumping around and the dust and everything.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like people who are big on the science side of things and sort of try and speculate what gravity would do to dust and things when people are moving around and jumping around. That's all. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter about that angle when you can just look at the fact that they've got wires behind them in at least some of the shots. But yeah, it's definitely ingrained into people's minds. No one really questions it. And it's benefited anything all the way.
Yeah, and as you said, you just said then about you know, the radiation belts in that Orion clip that I watched. Again, blatantly he said, we have to solve the problem of the Van Allen radiation belts. It's like what you just said, though. We solved that problem, apparently, but now, 40 years later, well, it's still a problem. I don't know how people listen to that and miss it.
Fukushima would like to know how they deal with radiation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you've got some answers to preventing that, yeah, send them over to Fukushima and Chernobyl, and those people would like some of that shielding that they're apparently sending up. What do you reckon, Lindsay?
Yeah, well, when I was looking at that clip, the way he sort of said over there in America or whatever it was, I thought, yeah, they'll just say he was meaning down below us, or, you know, the way he waved his hand. I can see how they'll try and wriggle out of that. But yeah, I've got in the group chat here, I've put a link to a book that I've got called NASA Moon America, with a lot of the photographs and things in there. So if anybody's interested in that, you might be able to put that on for the other people as well if you want. But It's quite an interesting book because it brings up a lot of those things and shows you. I mean, I've scanned it, so it mightn't be a wonderful scan, but it shows you a lot of the photographs, and you know, you can actually see the angle of the sun. You know how it's not parallel. It's the shadows are coming to a point and things like that. So it just makes a laughing stock of the whole thing. And I think the thing that struck me right from the very early days was that this machine's on the ground and you can see footprints all around it, and yet this massive machine that's come down with a jet outlet, which is nearly a metre wide, hasn't disturbed any dust underneath it. Whereas I go down the backyard with a blower, and it blows dust everywhere. You know, I've never been able to understand that part of it. You know.
And that's Earth's gravity compared to no gravity, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. And I would have thought that'd be the first thing you do, is blow the bit of the dust away underneath this thing. Just, I mean, obviously, whoever the Hollywood producer was, you would have thought they'd have that sort of continuity sewn up by now, you know, just making movies. But obviously somebody stuffed up somewhere.
Well, the story is that Stanley Kubrick was responsible for the footage, and under duress, and obviously I've heard you know, his family were threatened, and that he deliberately made mistakes so that people could pick it up. He made little faux pas, like you and I would say, we're going to do that. the first thing in our brain would say, make sure the dust is blown up, right? This is a big jet rock engine thing, whatever. It's going to blow up. We've got to make sure that there's like a crater around where it lands. That's logical, but I have heard, theories that Kubrick deliberately did things like this because his family and himself were under threat of death, I suppose, if he didn't make it. That he left these little things in there for those of us that are awake to find.
Okay. No, well that might be right then, because I know just the footprints. You know what it's like if you're in really dry weather out in Western Queensland in that black soil country or even the red soil country, and you put your foot down, you don't have a nice clean footprint like they've got. That only happens when there's some moisture in the dust. If you don't have moisture, the dust just falls away.
Yep.
Does that make sense? I mean, even on the beach, go in on a sandy beach, if you've got wet sand, you'll leave footprints with boots. If you haven't got wet sand, it won't leave that at all. It'll just leave a hole in the sand, It's just, I mean, small things like that, you just think, no, this is just not right at all.
No,
anyway,
no, it isn't, and there's a lot wrong with the moon landing footage and the photos. I remember watching a video where they went through, and there's these crosshairs, the crosshairs that are on the lenses, and they're behind, like the crosshairs on the lens, so it should always be on top of everything in the picture, but the rover's behind the crosshair and all of this sort of stuff. It's like obviously been manipulated in one shape or another. Look, the list of things that is wrong. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon is a really good documentary, but there's plenty. If anyone has any doubts whatsoever that the moon landings were not done on terra firma, just YouTube it, because it's pretty irrefutable. I'll go over to you, Play. When did you first realise that the space exploration was all a big joke? What was the first thing you watched that made you question it?
Actually, I think the first time that I actually started questioning whether or not we actually have been going to the moon and that we do have objects up there, like stations, for example. I think it was around maybe 4 months ago I started really questioning the subject, because I do have photographs from websites that show that we possibly have man-made stations inside craters. And I thought, okay, well, we have been to the moon, but considering the fact that there's so much radiation apparently that we can't actually leave Earth orbit, we might have technologies that we don't know about that have actually solved the issue, but not for NASA, because NASA is just a studio. It's a live movie documentary that's being updated every now and then. So yeah, we definitely haven't really solved the issues, other than Black Projects having the technology that is exclusive.
Matrix and I were having a conversation earlier tonight, and I went right down the rabbit hole. I jumped in feet first and suggested that maybe, because obviously there's a lot of anomalies with the moon, we obviously haven't, the NASA haven't been there. None of the NASA astronauts have been there. But there is a lot of theories out there about the moon. One of them is that it's a hologram. Another theory is that it's, and Jono will just love this, a spaceship, that it's actually under intelligent control, and it's part of the system that is keeping us enslaved. And people have pointed out what you were saying, Clay, about structures, that people are starting to pick up what appears to be structures on the moon's surface. Do you think there's any credibility at all in your mind to the other theories, that either it's a hologram or that it might actually not be a natural satellite? Maybe it's something that's under, power, that it might be a ship of some kind.
Interestingly enough, the subject of whether it's actually been, stepped on. If we go back in ancient times, Atlantis, Lemuria, Sumeria, Tower of Babel, about focusing on Atlantis, I think that there has been a point where the Atlanteans have had technology advanced enough to develop craft to reach the moon, seeing as there are little clips of apparent corpses that they found on the moon. I think it was done by one of the so-called NASA people. They picked up someone that looked like they were Asian in appearance, but they also had robotic parts, like down where the legs are. You can see the exposed area where it's cracked open, and there's like little electronic boards inside the leg. So I do kind of see a possibility that we've already been there. We've had so many generations of humans that we've just forgotten that we've been there. So
that's a really good take on it. What do you reckon, Lindsay? Do you think it's a possibility? Is the moon a hologram or is it a spaceship?
I don't really know. I've sort of read a couple of books on this by people claiming the moon's hollow, and apparently meteors hit it and it resonated for some time afterwards, and who knows? We're going on stuff that's supposed to come from NASA photographs, where you can see hot air rising, with sort of you can see a shimmer on the photograph, as if there's something hot coming out from within the surface. Mm-hmm. You've got these white trails across the moon. There's a whole lot of things involved there, and once again, it's I try to keep an open mind, but at the same time, I'm never convinced by these things, because we're just relying on evidence that can be easily manipulated. We know how easy it is nowadays to manipulate digital evidence, so I don't really know what to believe about it. Some people there've been people who are doing this, and I can't even think of the exact term they use, but where they can project themselves and get a vision of somewhere distant, so that they were being trained by the American government at one stage.
The remote viewing.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So they could go and look at somebody in Russia or whatever and see what was going on. And I remember reading a book about one of these fellas saying that he'd done remote viewing on the moon and actually seen construction and seen aliens there and all this stuff. Now, once again, do you believe somebody like that, or I don't know what to tell you. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm just open-minded, but I don't really believe any of it.
Yeah. And that's too, I guess, where we have to turn to each other and our own kind of evidence. There are a couple of YouTubers who are filming the moon from their own telescopes under their own funding. Crow 777 is one. He has caught what looks like waves across the moon, and not only he has caught it, other amateur astronomers, I think there's about 10 now, captures of this wave that travels across the moon, the lunar wave. And then there is dark sky watcher, and he basically gets his telescope out whenever it's clear skies, lines her up with the moon, and streams it for 6 hours sometimes, and does a bit of commentary. But they have captured, or he has captured, some very anomalous stuff. Now, these are not NASA people. These are just, inverted commas, people in the truth movement or the awake movement. However, then you, of course, know that we do have controlled opposition. We have plants. We have agents, all of this. So, again, who do you trust? Well, I don't know if manipulating it live while it's happening is as easy as manipulating it once it's been done. So, I sometimes at night will tune in and watch his replay, because obviously it's daytime here. He's in America. But at night I will go to that day's, broadcast and play it on the computer while I go to bed. And yeah, there's some anomalous stuff. So that, if you're interested in the moon and what is it and that, those two, Crow 777 and Dark Sky Watcher, they might be places. They're filming it, and they're not really. They're just saying, okay, let's just film it and see what we come up with. So that might be the answer, Lindsay.
Yeah. I've seen one of these, but I'm not sure who it was at the time, but I saw one of these, and it appeared to have unidentified objects of some sort going across the face of the moon. I don't know whether that's what you were talking about, and about anomalies or whatever.
Yeah, they catch things like that, like this lunar wave, UFOs, things like that. They catch all kinds of things.
Yeah, so we don't, when we say unidentified, I mean unidentified. We don't know whether they're spaceships or whether they're just meteors or what it is. But there are things floating across the face of the moon. So yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, one of the clips, and he hasn't been on for a while, but one of the things really easy to find out exactly what is up there in the night sky is night vision goggles. There was a guy on YouTube who had bought a night vision lens for his video camera, and he was going out at night on no moon nights and videoing it. And holy crap, the stuff that is zooming around up there, it's mind blowing, So, and they're not very expensive. That's something that most of us could probably, if we needed a little bit more evidence, could probably save up and do that for ourselves and get the answers ourselves. Me, I'm pretty open to it anyway. I don't really need to see it, but it could be fun. Maybe we could have nights where we all get together and have a look with the night vision goggles. I might go over to Greenpill and get your thoughts. What do you reckon? Hologram, spaceship? Do we need to buy some night vision goggles? What do you reckon, Greenpill?
Yeah, it's all very interesting. I've heard sort of David Icke stuff about it being a hologram. I think that's his take. And us being controlled via it or something. But yeah, I think the main thing would be we don't know shit, or the thing, what we think we do know is just that sort of mainstream narrative of, oh, it's just a rock, we've been there, nothing there, that sort of stop looking up sort of thing. And then when people do get their own telescopes and do their own sort of stuff, it is very interesting. And that's one way to prove it, like you're saying, is the live stream. That's people watching at the time. It's pretty hard to fake compared to just people putting up videos after the fact. I think it would be, they're all as likely as each other. What we think we know about the sun and the distance of the sun, that sort of came up in the flat Earth stuff as well. Like when you can see one of those space jumps, that the sun's just this tiny like shining a torch through the clouds. It's just this tiny little circle, and that made me start to question how big is the sun, how far away is the sun, what is the Earth, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, it's more of just an interesting sort of side topic rather than something that that you can really know with any sort of 100% certainty. But yeah, extremely interesting that I've only just started really getting into it since the Sunday sessions, pretty much. Other than the fact that always questioning NASA.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find the moon an interesting side thing because of something that Lindsay and John and have talked about on Sunday sessions in the past, and that is who's at the top and who's controlling us. So for me, if it is a spaceship, that's pretty important to the who's controlling us and the why. So while it's not something that I delve into a lot, it is definitely there in my radar because I see how it fits into the whole puzzle of who's in control and who's at the top. I might go over and get Matrix's thoughts because I'm sure he has many thoughts on the moon and what it does and why it's there and who's controlling it. So over to you, Matrix.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, it seems like we really don't know what the moon is. I think there's different aspects you can look into this. I mean, if the moon really was a sphere, it would have a diffused light. Currently, as we look at photos of the moon, the light is uniform all the way across the moon. And if it was a sphere, the light around the edges, towards the edges, the curves, would be diffused. So what we're looking at really, we really don't know what we're looking at. It appears that it's not a sphere. It's curious that the moon doesn't spin like other moons in the universe, so-called universe, as we were discussing earlier, Lisa, and how it always faces the Earth. That's a curious anomaly. How it somehow coincidentally lines up with the sun on a solar eclipse because it's supposedly 40 times smaller than the sun, but 40 times further away, or something like that. No, 400 times further away. The mathematics is quite peculiar. Other curiosities about the moon is how we can see a full moon in the daytime sky. That really should not be possible. So, I mean, there's lots of. It's definitely a subject that's taken my interest, especially of late. What is the moon? I mean, the Crow 777 footage is intriguing. I think we got to look at all kinds of different aspects of things. The moon doesn't appear to be reflecting the sunlight. It gives off a totally different light. It's not a yellow kind of light. To give off the moonlight is cold, and different things happen in the moonlight, as opposed to if the sun was actually reflecting off of it. So there's some definite anomalies with the moon, as we've been led to believe it is. As regarding space travel, I mean, and going to the moon, I mean, you can't travel in the vacuum of space. You can't propel in the vacuum of space. There's nothing to push against. The thrusters can't work in a vacuum of space. And if space is a vacuum, as they like us to believe, there's so many anomalies. I mean, there's lots of stories put out there, whether different ideas about space, the moon, this, that, and the other, in the scientific community, and it's really like a circle jerk, and it's just ways to distract people and keep them arguing over something that isn't what we've been told it is in the first place. Something like the Kubrick stuff is really interesting. Stanley Kubrick's films, all of his films, big films, they all seem to hint towards various things. I mean, the film like The Shining has little Danny in a Apollo 11 jumper, and which points towards Kubrick being involved with that, or dropping hints in that movie, The Shining, which a couple of people have broken down. There's a film called 237, room 237, which is a curious number because back in those times, when Kubrick made in the 70s, or whatever, the average distance to the moon was 237,000 miles. So, you know, Kubrick's pointing at various different things in all his movies, like even Eyes Wide Shut, you know, which is a great movie. I mean, the moon landings, I mean, it appears to have been some kind of front screen projection done in a studio, and you know, you've got the dust, the moon surface, and then behind it you've got a projection of mountains and so on. And this can be proven in various different ways from something called a parallax view, and where you compare two photographs, and they're showing two different aspects of where the mountains should be, but aren't showing. But they actually show where they can't possibly be. So when you're looking at the photographs from using this parallax view, it proves that the photographs are fake as well. And I like a lot of what Lindsay said earlier about how the lights and the shadows are consistent with a studio light rather than a sunlight. You know, I mean, this subject's kind of gone all over the place, and it's great. For me, you know, the ISS space station, getting back to that a little bit, you know, I've seen it fly above me. I've scheduled, you know, I checked out the times, and I've seen it fly over me here. And I really don't know what it is. I don't think they're up there in space. Having observed it fly across the sky here, it doesn't seem to be traveling at 17,000 miles per hour across the sky. It appears to be traveling very much similar to the speed of a plane. And you know, one thing you know, I'm investigating this subject, and there could be various technologies being used to, you know, imitate what could be the space station. I mean, a lot of amateur telescopes, and the best they can really do is kind of a blurred image of the ISS. And so I'm speculating, but I think that it's possible that it could either be some high altitude plane or a solar powered drone. And a lot of the images from Google Earth appear to be high altitude planes, you know. So the whole, go on.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I tend to think, because I've done the same, I've watched the ISS go over. So there's definitely something up there flying around. I'm skeptical whether anyone's in it. I think it's definitely unmanned, based on those silly, ridiculous videos from inside that I've seen. I also agree with you. It's not moving at 17. What do they say it is? 1,700 miles per hour. That's like
1,000.
Please, I've seen jets go over faster than that. It's ridiculous. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what it is. I also was fascinated with the satellite, you know, issue, and I didn't really look into it. You know, it's one of those things where it wasn't on my radar until I heard John Le Bon mention the satellite hoax. I'm not sure if he was discussing it with you one night, but I heard him talking about it, and I looked at Google Earth picture. There's a Google Earth picture that shows the apparent, all the, you know, 20,000 satellites that are up there. It's like chock-a-block up there. It's like a traffic jam in New York City on a Friday afternoon. It's insane, this picture. And then I looked at some footage from the International Space Station. You know, they have their time-lapse footage, or they even do live. They do live streaming now from... Where the hell are the satellites? I mean, there's no way. There is no way with that many, if you're looking at the Google Earth projected picture of where all the satellites are, because you can track all the satellites in Google Earth. So they apparently know where they all are. So here is this low Earth orbit traffic jam of clusterfuck of satellites that is orbiting our Earth. And here's the International Space Station stream. It's a beautiful, clear day on the Earth. There's not a satellite in sight. What are they, like, hiding them? Are they shoving them out of the way? Are they floating past in their wake? Like, that in itself is insane to me. Have you looked into the satellite thing, Matrix?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, there are no satellites in space. They can't exist. They are in space at varying altitudes, from low Earth orbit to geostationary orbit, which is like several thousand miles apparently. And what we should see is satellites in the sky, even from Earth. And supposedly we can, and we see the odd light go over the Earth in the sky, night sky above us. But there should be a way lot more. Even if they're just tiny little lights glistening. And the ISS space station footage, is just completely fake for many, many reasons. Even the live footage, which I looked at for hours and hours, and it's just totally fake. There's no chemtrails in the footage. There's no planes. There's supposed to be like 50,000 planes in the air or something like that, and they would just be glistening in the image, which they're not. And the same goes for the satellites in space.
Even the aeroplanes. That's another good point, because if you watch flight radar over Europe, there's hundreds and hundreds of planes in the sky at any given time. Why are they all not showing up on the ISS feed?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What I might do is that there's a couple of questions for you in the in the chat matrix. So what I might do is just to wrap this topic up and just ask everyone if they've got, anybody wants any final thoughts, anyone got any final comments that you want to say, or do you mind if we go on to the questions from the chat? Green Pill, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's all very interesting. I've thought the same thing when they talk about space junk and they talk about how cluttered it's getting up there and how cluttered it's going to be and all that. How don't the satellites and things run into each other? How doesn't the rubbish and all that they jettison hit them in the windshield, so to speak? You'd think it'd be all quite delicate. If things crash into each other, that's all very high-priced, fine-tuned technology apparently, with their little radar dishes and stuff. You think it'd be quite delicate to bump into another satellite or bump into a rocket, dislodge whatever the fuel canisters, whatever, they just drop back down to Earth or whatever, or the things that get stuck up there. Yeah, but that's all. Yeah. Yeah,
it's mind blowing, isn't it, Lindsay? Any final thoughts on the low Earth orbit traffic jam?
No, I haven't got on that. Just as a final thing to do with the moon, though, that book I put there about NASA Moon America, the same fella put out another book called The Last Skeptic of Science, and he deals with the pull the moon is supposed to have on the tides and things like that, and he does a lot of experiments, and the moon doesn't really pull the tides. You could be in a deep well and have the moon pass directly over the top so you can actually see it from down the well, and it doesn't raise the level of the water or anything like that. So there are more things going on here than we understand, not just to do with outer space or whatever, but just what the moon actually does or what it is. There's so many different things going on here. So I just mention that, so if people are interested, they can look into that as well.
Yeah. Play, final thoughts on the moon and the satellite?
One of the things that I wanted to mention about the moon, when the piece of information I came across was that a long time ago there was apparently information saying that Chinese people as a race came from the moon. Is actually a holdout structure that's been converted into a station. That they races of people structured from somewhere else, from a different planet, that they actually have to escape from because of environmental catastrophe. So that's one piece of information. And the word China, China, it means people from the moon, apparently.
Wow.
Otherwise, yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that.
That's pretty fascinating. That's I might have to look into that. I hadn't heard that before, but that will give me something to look for through the week, and I will
add it to the list.
add it to the list. Yep.
Titanic,
Yeah,
that's up there.
I mean, we've had apparently information where when Mars was populated more than 300,000 years ago, there was people that lived on there, and
Yes. Yeah. I
there's a
have.
possibility they are asked to as well
Yeah.
for evening.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. The Mars thing is very interesting, and I've often wondered, is that where our ancient, the ancient Greek god Zeus and Medusa and all of those, I mean, were they actually Martians? Is that where it originated from? Look, the rabbit hole is deep on Sunday sessions without John LeBon tonight. we are touching on all kinds.
Yeah.
Can I just?
I will look into that. Sorry,
I mean,
what did you say, Clay?
the story of.
Can you say that again?
You could go in many directions with this, where in many directions with this deep.
You were just breaking up a little bit there. I don't know why I'm getting a delay on your. I don't know if everyone else is, but yeah, you can go in all different directions.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a PDF online that talks about the story of Venus being a habitable planet millions of years ago, before it turned into a gaseous planet, where one of the populated areas of Venus, we had it was the first 10,000 years of human creation. Had the themes of Rome in that story, and how they went through the trials and tribulations of different aspects of culture that popped up. The artisans, the financial systems, the ugly people taking over and controlling the beautiful people. So a lot of those things could be adapted to what we know as Earth today.
Wow, that is fascinating stuff. Well, I've got my coffee time sorted out for me now. Thanks, Play. I've got a few things to look at through the week.
I could actually send you that document if you want as well. Just provide the email.
That would be great. Just send them through Skype. That would be awesome. All right. So thank you so much. So what we might do is I'll say what these questions are in the chat. I don't know if you're in the chat matrix. If you can see them, I know Green Pill is. Silver Slave is asking, paint a picture of what life will be like in 2020, which is only 5 short years from now. And she says, Matrix, is Spain next? And what happens when Greece falls? Would love to know what Matrix feels is going to happen in Spain, Italy, in the region over there that you're in. And I'm assuming she's talking economically. And if you think that that's part of, is an economic collapse part of their plan, or is that something they're trying desperately to stop?
Yeah, okay. Well, I've got a few more things to say on the other subject about the ISS.
Sure.
But,
yep, sure. Close out on that, absolutely, and then you can address the questions.
Okay, well, the satellites thing is they're supposedly in the thermosphere, the satellites, a lot of them, and the temperatures are 2,500 degrees centigrade up there, and all the materials used on satellites, its melting point is like almost half that temperature. So if they were really up there, they would all be melting, and which it seems to be more like a ground-based radar system that's being implemented on the Earth, and undersea telephone cables, and various technologies that we have. aren't necessarily related to satellites, and like even Google Earth, pictures of the Earth, and there are no pictures of Earth from space from these satellites, the Hubble telescope, etc. There are no real pictures of Earth, which also lends weight to there being no satellites. The film Gravity, and the ISS space station. I mean, that's a film about programming. It's a film I watched before really getting into the NASA hoax and whether the Earth is flat or not. And that film blew me away. It was just so powerful. But in that film they clearly show how you can do gravity-free environments with camera trickery and CGI and so on. But they also point out, the film's really about something called the Kessler syndrome, where all the space debris starts going haywire and flying all over the place. And that's something I would really expect if there was really space debris up there flying around. It keep colliding into each other and changing direction at supremely high speeds, like 17,000 miles an hour. And one of the Sunita Williams ISS space station tour, she mentions that if they get a hole in the ISS space station from either a comet or something like that, an asteroid, they just patch it up, which makes absolutely no sense, because if the hole was breached at all, the vacuum of space would suck out the atmosphere in a split second, So I mean, it's just more lies upon lies with regarding the ISS space station. NASA apparently have sent up this craft to collect the space debris. And it's this tiny little object that goes up there with an arm on it and a claw, and it tries to catch the space debris and puts it in a little hold. And then once it's full up, it dives down into the atmosphere and burns up. Total waste of money, total ridiculous idea. Yeah, I mean, and that's how this.
I've never heard of that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Let's check it out. It's another. I'll try and find the link for you, but it's another one of the absurdities. Yeah, and I mean, we were mentioning Mars just now. I mean, all the images of Mars are faked. The rover, who's taking the photographs of the rover? There's a desert rat in one of the pictures. They seem to be just taking it on Earth in some desert location, supposedly like up north somewhere. But yeah, I mean, it's all totally faked. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really fascinating subject of exploration. And if you're a truth seeker, you've got to look into all this stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours. I love it. It's one of the few subjects where I don't really mind if I don't come up with a solution. I think everyone knows I like solutions, but these things, I talk for hours. Really care about the solution side of it. Now, look, I have to interrupt for a second and make a on-air apology to Silver Slave 333. I referred to him as a her, but he's a him, not a her. That was a very bad faux pas. So I'm very, very sorry, Silver Slave, and I am going to return your masculinity to you and correct myself. My bad. I actually was confusing you with someone else that had silver in their name that I was watching on a podcast through the week. So my bad. I'm a naughty girl. All right, Matrix. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that everybody on the panel and everybody in the chat, all 15 people listening in, all know that everything in space is pretty much a hoax. So we're all on the same page. Why and the agenda behind it, who knows? That we might have to save that for a David Icke special. I don't know. All right, so would you care to address Mr. Silver Slave's question about what's going on over there with the euro and the economy, and maybe this we can all have a chat about what we think about the economy, but you're there in Spain, and he's interested in your thoughts on what's happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned about 2020, what's going to happen. I think that was the time frame you asked. I don't know. I mean, more of the same. Hopefully, more people will be waking up. I see austerity measures being put on everyone, and we're being robbed and deprived, and it's austerity instead of prosperity. I mean, I think in Spain, the economy has been destroyed on purpose. I mean, from where I am in the southern part of Spain, I mean, housing, they stopped building houses. They put a ban on building, which is a major part of development and the economy and people's jobs. And this has been done deliberately for the last several years, and it's absolute insanity that they're doing this. Stopping the development. And it appears to be part of the, let's say, Agenda 21 aspect of things. In Spain right now, it's 50% unemployment of people aged between 18 and 25, and it's 29% overall unemployment in Spain. So those are big numbers, and that's the official figures. So it could be worse than that. They definitely do seem to be destroying us. I mean, since they swapped everyone over to the euro, and it's just one big European Union now. It's like a fascist dictatorship where we have unelected officials in Brussels ruling over us, and and also in regards to Spain, the government has tried to put out a law where you're not allowed to protest anymore. It's quite a fascistic police state in a way. It's not as bad as London. I went to London a few months ago, and I mean, I'd much rather be in Spain. Let me just say. So that's Spain. I mean.
Do you think they're going to let? I mean, again, it's wonderful how synchronicity works. We talked. I mentioned earlier the video that I watched through the week, J.V. King, The Future of Governments, and it actually talks about the unemployment rate, the collapsing of the bubble, so to speak. It isn't sustainable. It really isn't in this age of technology, because if you've got 5, and he says this in his video, and it's very, very enlightening to actually think about it this way. But if you've got 5 businesses and they all employ people to pack their boxes and do all of the stuff that they do, and then one business, just one, decides I'm going to automate, and he automates 85% of his business. His costs have now dropped through the bottom, so he's going to make more profit. His running costs are low because machinery, doesn't need insurance, needs insurance, but it doesn't need health insurance, doesn't have sick days, doesn't have holidays, can work 24 hours a day, etc., etc. So productivity goes up, profits go up, costs go down. The first business in that, say those 5 same businesses, as soon as he does that, the other 4 either have to automate to remain competitive, or they go out of business. And there go all of the jobs. Now those jobs are not going to get replaced by another business opening up, because now the businesses are automated. So this system that we have of labour for money is not going to sustain us for much longer on this planet. And I wonder, obviously they know this, I wonder what their agenda is when it finally does implode, when we're looking at 70-80% unemployment rate. I don't know if anyone in the panel has thought about that, but if you want to have a look at it, that's J.V. King, The Future of Governments. Just YouTube it. And I'll see. My computer is being really slow. I will see if I can try and get it up. It's only 11 minutes long or something. It's real short, really easy, but it pointed it out very succinctly. So I think that not only should we all be looking at the propaganda from the media, the ridiculousness of NASA. But I think we all should have our eye on what's happening with the economy, even if it's not in our eye line. At least it should be peripheral. We should at least see it coming, hopefully. I might move over to Greenpill and see what you think about that. Do you think they're going to allow it to implode on itself, and do you have any supposition on what the agenda will be when it does?
Yeah, it seems like I've never been sure if that's the sort of the natural way that things go, as in humans becoming more and more obsolete in certain areas. They don't care about employing people when it's more important to make profits if machines can do it. But at the same time, they still need to keep the majority of people in some sort of slave system. So it's not a matter of if it's going to implode, it's just when. So it's a bit like that aspect of the control system, money. That's one form of control, and if people stop being subservient to it or stop caring about it as much, then they're less reliant on the system. But only a certain amount of people could do that. There's always, like, they're trying to make everything automatic, electronic. Some people could exist on cash, but not for long. So yeah, I think it will implode, just possibly not anytime soon, because they'll always, like, it is just a magical number on a computer somewhere. The 17 trillion debt, whatever, in America, just raise the debt ceiling, keep it going for another 5 years, whatever. Like,
yeah, and it brings home the things like the Food is Free project and the community garden idea, doesn't it? If we are looking down the barrel at 50, 60, 70% unemployment in the next 10, 15 years, free food growing in all of your gardens is actually going to be really, really important, because it's probably going to be the only way a lot of people are going to eat if there isn't some other solution put in place. What do you think, Lindsay? Do you think they're going to let it collapse, or do you think they have a plan? Because it's unsustainable. What do you think they're going to do about it?
Yeah, well, for a long time, both sides of politics, their whole solution to any problem is more jobs. And if you read anything on social credit, the whole point there was that what we were talking about earlier in this program, you actually need more leisure time. People don't need to work longer or harder. They need more leisure. And the benefits from production are already there from machinery and else. So we can live quite comfortably. We just need a new system. And we come back to this idea that money has no worth. It's just a ticketing system. When they found out during the Great Depression that Australia had all the wool it needed and all the food it needed, and just everything that was needed was there, but the people couldn't afford to buy it because the ticketing system was broken.
Yeah.
And if you go into social credit, I might try and dig something out and scan it or whatever. But there have been solutions for this, been postulated since the Great Depression, to get around this whole system, to bring a new system on that works, etc., that'll benefit us. Now, I don't know whether they're doing this on purpose. I suspect that, as we were talking before about parasites killing the host, I think these people periodically, throughout the last couple of thousand years, have done it over and over. They just overreach. They start to kill their host. The host gets absolutely sick of it and starts to kill them, and then it all starts all over again. Now, whether this time, they got nowhere to run this time. They can't run to the moon because they can't get through the Van Allen belt. So where are they? No, seriously, where are they going to go?
I know, Lindsay, I know. I just love the way you segued that, joined that together. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's right. But no, I'm serious. They got nowhere to run now. So the next time it'll be a bloodbath, and that I really don't want to see that. But I can't see any other way around it. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm not optimistic for it. And as far as the economy goes, we've been talking about that. I can see. Usually the stock market falls in September, October, the major American, and then they all follow suit. And I can see it lining up now. You've got margin. Well, from what I can understand of it, margin lending is now the highest it's been, and it usually goes up just before a major correction. Now, 2000 you had very high margin lending. 2007, 8 you had it, and now again it's back up to higher than those two. So we're looking for a major correction coming, which usually comes in September, October. Excuse me. And there are other things also coming to play. I mean, we're starting to get inflation in Europe, whereas they were only 6 months ago they were panicking about deflation, and now they're starting to get signs of inflation. Now, once that starts to take over, I mean, I've got no qualifications, but just going on past history, man, it'll take off. You know, and it won't be long, and then Silver Slade will be rubbing his hands together with glee, sitting on his little stash of silver. But no, because what's it going to go? 5 times, 10 times? No, once it gets going. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it now. But take it for what it's worth, and I'd love to hear anybody who's got disagreement with me there.
Well, I'll just interject a little bit there. It's, Greg says in the chat, they have to make it collapse before they can give us the solution, a new global currency. But a global currency still has the same problem that individual country currency has, and that is the labour for dollars system. It doesn't matter if we've got a one world global currency or the way it is now. If you've got 70%, 60% unemployment, people can't earn the global currency. So it's still the same problem, the unsustainability of the actual system itself. And that's, you know, Lindsay, you mentioned the Great Depression, and the Jacques Fresco, the guy who originally came out with the idea of the Venus Project, he lived through that. And that was what, he was a young boy, and that is what actually, you know, one of the seeds, one of the things that inspired him. He said exactly what you said. The food was there, the clothes were there, the shelter was there, but nobody had the tickets, the money to purchase it. So money wasn't the problem. The supply, getting the goods to the people was the problem. The system of distribution was the problem. And we need to come up with a new system of distribution, and because labour for money is not sustainable. So yeah, I'll move on to play. What are your thoughts? Do you have much delving into the economy and what we could possibly be doing to protect ourselves? Play.
Well, I'd say from the recent report on RT with Kaiser report, he pretty much summed it up as we're pretty much all Greeks, which pretty much entails that we're all stuffed on the verge of collapsing. And when you guys mentioned the correction of September, I think that's probably one of the cards they're going to draw, and the fact that Obama and the Pope are going to meet up in September, and I think that for something new to come along, you have to kind of collapse the old system to a point where there'll be people fighting on the streets. There'll be excuses for governments to employ the agendas to enforce a stronghold even more. I've mentioned previously in other chats. It'll be a large combination of things, as well as the fear-mongering of World War III to actually, enclose the circle, so-called, and introduce one world currency or a credit system, and I've been reading up on technologies from CNET, and they say that by 2025, there's going to be probably more than 50% of factories are going to be automated. So we have to replace those previous industries with new jobs, new industries. A lot of it is going to be very high-tech industries. IT is going to be there still, obviously, because we're going to be using a lot of technologies, including the electronic tattoo that they're kind of pushing at the moment. Oh, the kids are going to love it. Especially the 18-year-olds, when they can have like a little tattoo to go and scan and get something. So, yeah, as long as we just keep pushing the same amount as they are, we'll get somewhere, and we shouldn't give up.
No, well, I don't give up completely, but sometimes I wonder if I should be just changing tact a little bit. But definitely lately, the community gardens and the Food is Free project, I've been trying to share that around, get people to plant food in their front yards. Or orange trees, lemon trees, apple trees. If you've got a front yard that you can do that in, planter boxes. If you've got a smaller yard with tomatoes and even small bushes like blackberry bushes are beautiful, decorative, and they give food. There's plenty of things we can be doing, and lots of ways to do that. Seed bombs are another great one. I love seed bombs. They're fantastic. You drive around and throw seed bombs everywhere out the window of the car. So that could help if there is a collapse of any kind that happens. If there's food at least growing freely around the neighbourhood, at least people won't starve.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this viewer's name, but I'm going to shorten it to Zwit, has said that, which is very interesting, tomorrow is the Bilderberg meeting. So we will probably, it's ironic that we're talking about currency and world domination. The boys are meeting.
Yeah.
So the next few days could be interesting of what's coming out of that. Matrix, do you follow the Bilderberg meetings? Did you know that the meeting was on tomorrow? I had no idea. I stopped listening to Alex Jones, so I don't know when they're on anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard about it. Had someone brought it up. Yeah, Alex Jones is big on the Bilderberg, and the Bilderberg. Yeah, I mean, how is that allowed to exist? I mean, it goes against all the trade laws, and politicians doing deals in back rooms and so on. I mean, it's just one of the most bizarre things that is out there. And it's big. Alex Jones. Say what you like about him. I mean, he did bring the Bilderberg to our attention, a lot of people's attention, and as well as Bohemian Grove, and so I mean, you get all the last time I think it was in England. No, it was in somewhere else in Europe, like Denmark maybe, and prior to that it was in England, and we had all the British politicians turning up, going there, hanging out, doing the dirty deals. Ken Clarke, George Osborne. I think even Cameron might have made an appearance. The whole backbone of the establishment was there, and it's a worldwide club started by I think it was Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, and he was an ex-Nazi, and I think it was started in the 1960s sometime. Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised though if you could dig into his connections and his history if he wasn't didn't have Zion connections, because I've heard that nearly all of the Bilderberg members have ties to the Zion groups.
Yeah. I mean, they're all definitely connected, these people, one way or another. I mean, the British politics is definitely connected to Zionism. I mean, they have a big lobby, Jewish lobbies, Zionists, they're all Zionists, friends of Israel. Margaret Thatcher, back in her day, she used to consult a rabbi, So, yeah,
Wow.
you can't get away from Zionism in the Western world anyway.
No. No, and I agree with you. I don't know how. Well, I say that, and then a little voice inside of my head says, "Yes, you do, because they're all asleep." How did they get away with this? When you said that, how are they getting away with this? It's like, I know, the mind boggles as to how we allow it, and the only answer I ever come up with is because those of us who know better are in the minority. We don't have the power of the majority behind us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does anyone know where the Bilderberg? I can quickly search it where it is this year. Are they saying in the chat?
Yeah, Zwit is there. I don't know if Zwit is a male or a female, so I'm not going to make that mistake twice. Today, Bilderberg, tomorrow, Bilderberg in Buchen. Buchen? I don't know how you say it. Buchen? Let me see if I can copy it.
Didn't he say he was Austrian?
Yes. So Austria somewhere?
Quite possible.
Yeah, it says in Austria. Yeah. This year.
All right, I'm going to put that in the side chat of the panel, the town. There, that one.
Buchen. Okay.
Yeah. Austrian is obviously very bad. I didn't watch The Sound of Music enough.
I was gonna mention before, Enchanted. Sorry to cut in. I was gonna mention that there's a channel on YouTube called Alternative Media with this American educated guy, and he mentions that the downturn of the financial system so far has been happening every 8 years. So we're possibly heading for let's say it's not 2015 or 2016 period where it's going to be the same as 2008, if not worse, considering that America is in the trillions, like 17 plus trillion, including not including the public debt, but the bank debt and everything. So it's going to be way worse than the 1930s.
Wow.
If that's going to happen, way worse. But otherwise, yeah, it's they're not going to hit us with one thing. They're going to hit us with numerous things to actually, just like you said, boggle your mind and confuse you. And those that are in the know have been kind of prepared mentally and kind of have that survival instinct. Will be the one that either can aid people, certain people, and the rest will have to just either, I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh, but yeah. Go figure.
Yeah. And on that note, I might throw over to you, Greenpill. What's your views on Bilderberg and the currency, and what do you reckon they're going to do this time around? And then, do you have an opinion on why we allow it to continue?
Yeah, I think they're right up there. Like, it's all the captains of industry and the the Kissingers and the intermediaries between the real players and the medium level players, I guess, or the not as high up players. And big decisions do come out of it. I'm sure they'll be talking about whether they let Greece default, etc. Like, someone said the Greek deadline was pushed back. Maybe that was possibly just so they could talk about it a bit more at the meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they same sort of thing, over the top security and just up front in their ways. Trading with the Enemy Act and all that in America doesn't seem to stop them. Clinton always there, and the people behind the scenes that advise the president, etc. They're always there, but none of those rules seem to apply to them. What they meet, and then the next thing you know, that I think it's. You might actually get a Rothschild there or whatever, but you do get the ones that do the bidding. The Fortune 500 companies, the royalty, the princes, etc. Whatever they're always there, and then it goes from top down. It's become whoever started in the first place, like the Birdland of the Netherlands, whatever. It's become this organic consensus where it's this big club. They're all in on it. They all just go, yeah, we're rubbing shoulders with the players, and they just all have the same sort of things in mind. And yeah, like the CEO of Nestle trying to patent water or something, control water, put a price on it as a commodity. Just stuff like that. They just.
What do you say? It's not a human right.
Yeah, it's not a human right to have water. So things like that will be on these psychopaths' minds. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Zwitch was saying it's you basically need a passport with you everywhere. They shut down the trains. There's no fly zones. 200 kilometres of fences, 3 metres high. And you have to wonder, why do they need that? It's obviously because, as Zwitch said, it's everyone's waking up, and then they're right there in front of their noses. These people obviously fear the information of what they're doing getting out, because obviously if it got out, nobody would agree with it. So it's like if you're just having a business meeting, what do you need to shut down the trains and have a no-fly zone for heaven's sakes?
Yeah, exactly. It's very in your face, but they're sort of conditioning as well. That like when the G20 comes, they just say, "These are your rulers. You don't have any rights when they're around. They're more important than you." That sort of thing, and pretty much martial law on the streets.
Scary, isn't it? Very scary. What do you think about the Bilderberg situation, Lindsay?
I don't. I've sort of studied in the past, but I don't really take much notice of it now because it's just there and there's not much I can do about it really. So it'll do what it wants to do, and we'll just see where it goes. But I think they're starting to become limited by what's going on in the world. I know one of the people here was talking about China, saying, what about China, the new boss? But stuff I've just been reading recently suggesting that China is very pro-Jewish because they think they're a wonderful example of how they've taken over the world. So I found it a little bit disconcerting, because I thought at least China will be, they've got a very strong national spirit. They'll be Chinese, but apparently they do. They sort of almost like envy, not envy, but they look up to the Jews. They've been so good at business and so good at, screwing everybody, and apparently a lot of Chinese aspire to that. And it really did concern me. So we'll just see where it all goes. You probably find the Rockefellers and Rothschilds and what have you have got a big control over what goes on in China. We see all what's given to us in the press.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't seem to be anywhere on earth where they don't have their fingers.
Yeah, and if you go back, I think it was about '92, there was an Asia crisis, and the backside fell out of everything, and they can pretty much, we know they started the Depression, so they can pretty much turn it on and turn it off wherever they want. Now, I'm hoping that the Chinese are a bit smarter than them now, and that's why they've been going across to gold in a big way, because they realise that the American dollar's not worth the paper it's written on, and the Americans are just waiting for inflation so they can pay them back in tiny dollars, all the trillions and whatever they owe them. So at least the Chinese are laying their hands on as much gold as possible. So I think they're smarter. They're wise to what's happening, but it's a sort of a funny sort of an arrangement that, I'm a little bit worried about it anyway. I mean, you were talking about Greece before, and I'm not sure what's happening with there. I was reading the other day that they defaulted just on a small payment on Friday, and I was watching the screen, and the euro just tumbled about 9 o'clock at night. And then I'd read somewhere that there's another $1.5 billion or something like that to come in about 3 weeks' time. So, I don't know where that's all going to end. And I'm a little bit worried that might take down a few German and French banks, and then there'll be American interest in those banks, and that'll start to take down the American banks. It really has got me quite concerned. So when you take that coming close to the September-October thing we're talking about, it's not. I am a little bit disconcerted. Anyway, I'll throw that back to you.
So maybe just a good time to to have seeds and a few little prepping things stored in the cupboard, Lindsay? You know, just in case.
I think it might be. I've spoken about this before, about the depression, and how the banks just closed. You know, Friday, everything's going well. They just didn't open on Monday, and people got caught out for quite a long time without money. And it'll be worse now when everything's digital. It'll be worse. You know, so it is a bit of a major concern, because so many of those people, you can't even tell them that. You know, they think you're mad. You know, that won't happen again. You know, that was all that long time ago. Well, yeah, it will happen again. The same people are in charge, and the same people are being screwed. You know, it's going to happen again. So it's a bit of a worry to me. But anyway, so we can only do what we can, and take our own precautions. That's all we can do.
That's right, and share with everyone, and you know, on vehicles like this, is it doesn't hurt to have a stash of seeds in the cupboard. It doesn't hurt. You know, we've got stashes of flour and organic seeds, all, you know, just small amounts that would get you through. You know, I could pretty much, you know, not leave the house for 3 months with the preps that we've got. So, and it doesn't. That's nothing. Like, that's nothing really in terms of prepping. Some of these people could not leave their houses for 3 years with the stuff I've seen on some of these prepping shows. And we keep, you know, like, whenever I buy jewellery, now this is for the ladies listening, when you buy jewellery, buy real gold. Don't buy crappy imitation stuff. Save up, buy the good stuff, so that if anything ever does hit the fan, you actually have real good jewellery that you can melt down or that you can use. So you might not get as much of it because it costs more, but at least you'll have good shit if the shit hits the fan. So, yeah. What about you, Play? Are you prepped? Do you have stores of anything?
Yeah, I've actually been buying like 6 packs of pH balanced water for like $4 for a 6-pack. Thinking about the how many milliliters per day I need personally, as well as if there's going to be more than 2 people. But otherwise, on that subject, I was reading up on some articles that was mentioned on YouTube in regards to the thousands and thousands of shops closing in America, including Walmart's. Focusing on the food aspect of the shopping category, and yeah, it's just looking like they're getting rid of as many shops as possible, which will kind of restrict availability as well as get people alarmed. And some people are saying they're closing Walmarts because the elites are taking all this food underneath into bases and everything. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It is, and that has something to do with the Jade Helm stuff, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, look, maybe next week, if John is back, I don't know much about the Jade Helm, so Green Pill's keeping a list of apparently all the things that I'm going to be looking into this week, so you can add that to the list. I have watched a little bit on Jade, and I say that jokingly. I have looked a little bit at Jade Helm, but not a lot. So yeah, there's a couple of things there that maybe next week we can look into a little bit deeper, because it's good to know, but I always do like to have a little bit of at least a basic knowledge of it, or at least have seen a video. And the Jade Helm thing I'm really not up with, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And that, anyway, we'll also have the Bilderberg meeting that will be done, so we'll have all that information. So next week could be a very good economic and topic, and what Jade Helm means and how that could affect us. I might. I just looked at the clock and it's 11:20, and I think we've had a really great night and covered a huge amount of different topics and all very interesting stuff. And I was wondering why I was starting to feel a little bit tired, and I looked and it's like 11:20, so I might wrap up if that's all right with everyone. I might just go around the panel and give everyone the
One last
opportunity
thing.
to have their final thoughts, and we'll wrap this up. I might start with you, Clay. So final thoughts, and
Yeah.
you can say your good evenings.
Well, final thoughts on that subject on Jade Helm. It's pretty much a countrywide kind of project for the elites hiring all these outside help, knowing that the local military people won't back them up, as well as the interesting thing is this exercise, so to speak, is finishing at the same time as the blood moon in September, when the correction is going on in markets, which kind of makes you think all this is finishing in September. So yeah, what's going to happen? That's
It's
it.
all converging, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all like a peak, and then they're gonna roll out what's gonna happen towards December. That's what it looks like.
It's going to be a very interesting time, September, by the sound of it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And even though I think Rollo's gone to bed, I will give you a shout out for joining us for graciously allowing you to pop in his seat. Thank you very much, Clay. Over to you, Jim. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, really enjoyed the chat. Lots of interesting stuff. Always more to learn. Always different ways to look at things. I know that next time I'm chatting when Rollo's on, I'm going to be very direct and very straight to the point. No more broad ramblings. So, who's listening tomorrow or something, you can take that as it is. Yeah, next week. Looking forward to it. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. And Matrix, thank you so much for joining us. What are your final thoughts on the evening?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I really enjoyed the show and the chat, and I think it covered lots of different subjects, interrelated. They're all kind of interrelated, aren't they? So yeah, I've got more things to say about about the collapse. I don't think it's going to be a collapse, so to speak. I think there will be an event. I think the elite like things the way they are, and they're consolidating things, and it's corporatocracy. I think we're looking at things like bail-ins, and whether the government's going to steal savings and pensions. They made allowances for those kind of things. I think the event could be something. The more it goes on, progresses, I see something like the possibility of a staged alien invasion, something along those lines. Like Werner von Braun talked about, the different stages like Cold War, terrorism, asteroids, and the invasion. Something I've seen recently is the big hologram of a city in China, and it appears to be totally real. People can't tell, and that's a fascinating technology. China.
About that.
Yeah, you've heard about that?
Yeah, just wasn't on my radar. I sort of, glanced across it, but yeah, that I did hear about it, but I haven't looked into it.
But yeah, also, I'm supposed to be wrapping it up here. There's loads of stuff we can keep talking about, like Chairman Mao, the open wars, Rothschild control, the implementation of communism in China, and things like that. Jade Helm, it seems to be just like another sort of psychological operation going on, really, and training for the military, preparation for the police state, and so on. I haven't done a lot of research into that, yeah, I'll just wrap it up there. Thanks a lot for having me on. Really enjoyed it as usual, and yeah, look forward to the next one.
Awesome, you on Matrix, and also Green Pill, an absolute pleasure to have you on. Lindsay, I will finish up with you tonight, and what final thoughts on the evening, and did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, no, that's been good. I thought it was a good ranging talk. I'm quite happy with that. I've sort of learnt things, but the only thing I've really got to say that I haven't already said was that the business about the agents coming from the moon triggered in me that memory of the mummified bodies of white people in like a Scottish, what are the crisscross, it won't come to me, the crisscross patterns in their cloth. Sorry, it's getting very late at night.
The clans?
Yeah. No. But there's a name for all the clans have got an individual design. Tartans.
And you know what? I'm ashamed. I have Scottish heritage. I should have known that straight away.
Yeah. Anyway, no, that's all right. No, it was just interesting that these mummies that were dug up in Western China in the desert were red-haired. They had tartan clothes, all this sort of stuff. And when you just said that about, I thought, well, I wonder if they were there and then somebody's come later. So it sort of just triggered the thought, oh well, there might be credibility in this thing about the Asians coming from the moon. I don't know. I might be getting a bit carried away too.
That's a deep rabbit hole, Lindsay. It's a deep rabbit hole.
or a very sick mind or something. Anyway,
no, not at all.
That's all I've got to add. We've said it all, and thank you very much, everybody, for stimulating conversation. I've got another week to wait now.
Yes, Lindsay. And look, thank you to everyone in the chat. Great chat going on tonight. We had a little bit of a rough start, but everyone was very respectful, and everyone had great manners in the chat, so that's awesome. And I really appreciate everyone tuning in and listening, even though I'm not John LeBon. And John was in the chat. He popped in and out a couple of times, so I hope we have done him proud. And I would just like to say, everybody have a safe week. Keep your eyes open, and don't be afraid to jump down the rabbit hole. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.
All right, see ya.